By the way, John, good to see you in the newspaper in a positive light, in a suit even.
Ready? Oh, okay. Welcome, everyone, to the first meeting of the Citizen Involvement Council in 2014. It is. The Citizen Involvement Council is a group that consists of 2 delegates from each neighborhood association coming together here in the city council meeting room to discuss things going on in their neighborhood, to hear from the city about things going on at the city level, and to exchange ideas to make our city the best one in the state of Oregon. Now, before we begin, we do have some guests in the audience. I'd like you to introduce yourselves, and if you would like to speak tonight on any particular subject that we discuss, if you will fill out a form at the back of the room and hand it to Katie, she'll get you on the agenda in a orderly fashion. We just take people first come, first serve as far as those wanting to speak. So, can we start in the back with Tom?
Tom Guile.
Yep.
Tom Guile, resident, Planning Commission.
Dan Holliday, resident.
Howard Post, Geneva.
Sorry, is everyone saying something?
Yes.
Okay. Jonathan Stone, Main Street, Oregon City.
Doug Neely, Oregon City.
Bob Mahoney, I'm taking the 5th.
Again?
Scotch or vodka?
That's still.
Planning Commission.
Did our secretary get everybody's name for the record? Thank you. Okay. Ordinarily, we would start right now with our guest speakers, but Tom Guile in the back of our room has something of import he'd like to share with us, and I agreed to let him speak for about 5 minutes on a couple of items.
Do we need to do roll call first?
Yeah, I was going to say roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. You want to
Okay.
wait while we do that? Pardon me.
Okay. Tony is excused. He is out of the country. Mike Berman.
Here.
Paul Edgar.
Here.
Amy Wilhite here. Kathy Hogan.
Yes. You're here.
Tom O'Brien.
Present.
Steve Anderson is on a leave of absence, and so Joyce Gifford has been approved as the new representative for now for Hillendale.
Present.
Thank you. Faith Leith. Here. Alice Watts.
Here.
Damon Mabey.
Here.
Bob LaSalle.
Here.
Barbara Rankin. Here. Diane McKnight. Eileen Olson.
Here.
Marianne Jensen.
Here.
Ingrid Rickenbach.
Here.
Todd Last.
Here.
Brian Boyce.
Here.
And Kim Dye.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, Tom, 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I don't need that. Just a couple of quick comments. Every once in a while when I go on the city website to look at Planning Commission notes, I noticed, I watched the CIC. The last time, I think it was the last meeting where you were talking about the brown marmalade. Can't even pronounce it right.
Marmaladed.
You don't-
Marmated.
Yeah.
Brown marmated.
You got the picture.
The
Anyway,
stink bug.
The stink bug. Just wanted to let you know that actually, ever since I moved in 10 years ago in the Trailview area, we're up against a forest, so we get an infestation up in that area. Last year it was so bad that it was almost covering the street address on my house, the house numbers. So I filmed it, and I'd heard on Channel 2 News about it, so I sent it off to Oregon State University Extension, and they said they see a lot of these, but they've never seen one that bad. So they came up, and they put little boxes on the front of my house and on the back side where the heat gets it, because it's wherever the sun goes to. And I asked them about a spray, because Michael, you mentioned a spray or anything like that. They said there actually is no other spray of malathion, but they said that's not encouraged because of what it does to the environment. So they're looking into these little traps of these boxes, because I get them inside the windows, inside the vents, and there's no opening the windows till next spring when they all bunch up in a corner together. And they're actually, Oregon State's looking at a way to control them by getting them to go into these little traps. And they said you would probably find a pile underneath that at some point. But they still haven't even perfected that yet. And that's why they wanted to do a test of my house. They'd seen them in Hillsborough and other areas, but they said they'd never seen one, because it looks like a storm going between the forest and the backside of my house, like bees. It's
Yeah.
that thick. So just thought I'd let you know about that.
Awesome.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is because I always hear about this on the news, and until it happens to you, you really don't have any idea how extensive and how devastating it can be. But the day after Christmas, I got identity theft. And I thought, I've been through a lot of neighborhood association meetings, our own CIC, and I know we've talked about emergency preparedness. I know that was also discussed in the last meeting. But we seldom have someone come into our neighborhood associations to talk to people about identity theft. And you always think it's going to happen to somebody else. Has anyone here ever experienced that? What happened the day after Christmas? I get a call from PayPal, and they said, did you just try to order a bunch of merchandise from Home Depot in San Fernando Valley? No. Well, you're sending about $500,000 down there to San Fernando for string and gloves and little stuff. And so they canceled the order before it got any further. But because on PayPal, as most of us know, you have your checking accounts or other things where you move money back and forth. They had gotten into the checking account through the PayPal, and because the checking account number's there, and because stupid me, and this is one of the big mistakes, they say don't use the same password. Well, because it was PayPal and because it was my personal account, I use the same number. And I've done that for probably over 10 years, over a decade. So they were able to get into that. And Bank of America, they can turn off the alert system so they can tell you, they can turn it off so no one knows that you're adding a payee, because they usually alert you that you've just added a payee or you're changing your address. They turned that all off, so I didn't know. But I was able, since PayPal called me, to stop the $1,000 check that was going to someplace in Stillmart, California, to stop all the other information. But first they had to verify who I was, and when they asked me for my street address here in Oregon City, they said, well, that's not the one we have. We have you in California and then southern LA area. So they got into that. They were able to start draining the account, but Bank of America was able to stop it because they were sending them out as checks. But from that, they also got into, because my PayPal is for my Halloween business and my other stuff, they were able to get back to my Comcast emails, and they switched all the information on my Comcast emails. So had to report it to the Oregon City Police. And when somebody goes into your bank account and tries to change your address, that's a federal offense, so we had to call the postal inspectors. Of course, you have to notify all the three credit reporting agencies, but my credit's now locked for a couple of years to make sure that nobody else gets into it. So as of January 1st, I was going to have health insurance and was seeing some doctors. So I called to verify my AARP health insurance, and someone had gotten into that too. They changed all the addresses. They had me multiple names under different addresses. So it gets quite extensive. And I could go on, there's even more, but the big thing of coming before you tonight, besides being here to hear some presentations, was this might be a good idea and a good timing, as I've been told by security. Oh, that was the other thing. My computer had to have a lobotomy. Everything's been wiped clean all the way back to when I bought the computer in 2008, because a Trojan can hide in any one of your files. It can be attached to a JPEG and you can't find it. So I had to erase all my photographs that I've taken over these years. Everything had to be wiped clean. So it's a good time to remind your citizens when you're having a CIC meeting, a neighborhood meeting, talk to them about changing their passwords, using different passwords for each account, bank accounts, checking accounts, PayPal, your Facebook. I was told by the security people when they were cleaning my computer that they look on LinkedIn to see who's got a great job. Then they look to see if you're on Facebook, because they look to see what kind of salary level you might have. I don't know what they could get out of a retired person. But still, they go into Facebook, and then they start looking to see what friends you have. It gets quite extensive, and these guys and gals who do this get paid a six-figure salary, typically, for doing all the work they did. And so it might be a good idea to suggest, have someone come in at some point and talk to your neighborhoods and talk to people. Change your passwords more often. I know the cities won't do that, but change the passwords. I got that.
Yeah.
And keep them different. And good luck with that, but
Okay.
it's devastating when it happens to you.
Yeah, that's awful. I guess you'll become an expert. Maybe we'll have you back to figure it all out.
I've learned a lot. It's scary,
Yeah.
I tell you.
Thanks for
Take
sharing.
care.
I'm sure sorry.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a quick comment. It's
Yes.
it struck me that, this is really an emergency situation. Maybe we should throw this in with emergency management, because you do have to act immediately.
Yeah.
So that's an
It's
idea.
something you have to be cautious of and
Yeah.
record all your stuff. As Alice said, I kept all my passwords on my computer. Never keep anything like that in your computer. Keep it on a piece of paper by the side of your computer. So
And don't let anybody break in.
It's scary. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Now, before we start our guest speakers and our program for that and our business meeting as well, I want to give everybody a timeline of how we're going to get through this evening. We have a very controversial subject tonight, and I expect a lot of discussion on it. So here's what I'm looking at. It's now almost 7:15. So our first speaker is going to be James Nicita. He's going to be able to speak. We're going to allow him to speak until 8, and that includes discussion. So Jim, if you can allow, where are you? There you are. You can allow time for discussion within that 45 minutes. It would sure be helpful. And then our mayor is going to speak. Do you need more than 10 minutes, Mayor? Okay, so I put down 5 because I didn't know that it would take any more than that. Pardon me?
I was wondering, could we reverse the speaker so that the mayor doesn't have to?
I'm going to stick around anyway.
Okay, all right.
And John, I've given you 15 minutes. Would that be adequate for your report?
need that, so I'll try and
Okay,
make sure.
all right.
benefit.
Okay. Chamber update. Oh, I don't see our chamber member here tonight, so we're going to save some time there. Approval of minutes usually only takes 5 minutes or so. Getting down to the rest of the meeting, we don't have any huge time robbers and the rest of it, but my goal is to be out here by 9:15. Kathy?
Katie, somebody sent us that thing.
Packet?
Yeah, and
From-
there's no way that I was able to.
Yeah, they were PDFs. Were you not able to print out?
Oh, thank you. No, I'm not.
She's here.
Okay. That's great. Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I thought
Chamber's
they
here.
would be, we would have copies. 'Cause
And apparently our speaker has brought some, so that's great. Well, without further ado, our first presenter is James Nicita, and he's going to share some thoughts on the transparency and city charter.
Okay, thank you. The Kinko's copier was slower than my copier, so I'm not sure that the 20 copies I made was going to be enough for all the CIC members. And for the folks in the audience, I am going to see if I can project some of these copies up onto the screen here so people can see them.
Does he? Oh, no. Are you wanting that up on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, then I can project it up, but unfortunately I can't do it from that computer.
Well,
So which did you just tell me which documents you want up?
yeah,
or-
it's all I have on the drive, so I can just.
Is it just the documents you're handing out? Or is it something different? Because I already have those up on my computer to project up if you want.
That will work.
I have a copy, thank you. I have a copy. Okay, give me just a second.
Oh my God.
Get some time.
It's more than I printed out, actually.
Yeah, more than I'm going to read right now. Yeah.
Jim, is there more in what you handed out than what was sent out?
There is.
I mean, there is. I see
Yeah.
In what I sent out, there was 2 links on the first page. The 2 links were to our city charter and to the model cities charter.
Okay.
So I've actually included, and that's kind of why the packet's pretty thick.
It's not showing.
I've actually included a copy of both in the packet itself. So I'll go into it.
Those are the 2 documents I didn't print.
Yeah.
If we get to Oh, just get to share.
Sorry, apparently we're having difficulties. You passed out keyboard, didn't you?
I've projected from this before.
Well, no, I know. It's just not working tonight. I'm sorry. But you said it's on the, you could probably do it on your drive. I just couldn't get my presentation up on there.
Yeah, that was.
Give it a whirl.
This can be projected up on the screen.
Okay. It's not responding.
It is projecting
Okay.
on the screen.
You or him?
No, that's him. You're gonna have to hit Control Delete.
What's that?
On the back,
Up here?
USB port.
Right there. Is it over here? There you go. I would have had this up had I thought this. Sorry about that. Turn out the lights. Should be able to- There you go.
Let's see.
While we're waiting, I'll give a disclaimer that the views to be expressed are my own and do not represent those of the CIC.
Thank you. I should have done that myself.
E-drive.
Let me just say something else too while we're waiting, in that the executive board feels that we are not here to force any particular idea on any of the members. We are an open forum here, and we're facilitating the exchange of ideas. Some things that come before this group are not going to be favorably received by all, and some will be received favorably by many. We never know that because each of us is different. But we are an open forum, and we want to learn and learn how to live with each other and be working together even when we have different opinions on matters. So that's why we welcome Jim tonight to share his thoughts.
Jim, soft-spoken, is the microphone on? So it's hard to hear even though
How's that?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. This chain is preventing me from moving this out of the way. Okay. So thank you. Let's see now. 7:19. Yeah, I'm going to try to go as fast as through the presentation.
Yeah, we've already lost 5 minutes.
Yeah, so we can, anything, points I want to make, I might just say for responding to people's questions. So, but just to give background, when I first proposed this discussion, I had a whole kind of array of subject matter to discuss regarding the structure of our city government and open government and transparency issues. I'm recognizing in conversation with the executive committee that time is limited, and it really should be an ongoing discussion. We exchanged emails and decided that, to pare it down. In order to do that, I decided just to concentrate on one of about, I think it was 4 kind of sections I had in the presentation. So if the presentation seems kind of disjointed, I just couldn't fit it all in. And I wanted to spend tonight talking about one of the issues that, from my experience on commission, I feel is significant. And in order to start that discussion, let me open another one of my exhibits. Oregon City is one of only 2 cities in the metropolitan area where it's the manager and not the council that has the power over the city attorney as far as hiring and firing. And there are a number of issues I feel regarding privilege and fiduciary that creates, especially with regards to privilege, that I think impacts transparency both with the public and the city commission. To give you this charter, I created this about 3 years ago. I'm not sure all of the code and charter sections in every community is up to date because it's unchanged since I first created it. And I'll get to how the model charter that the League of Cities addresses the issue as well, kind of towards the end of it. So you can say I put in the various levels of government. Metro, it's the council that names the attorney. All 3 counties, and then all of the cities except for us in Tualatin. It's actually the commission that has the authority over the city manager.
Jim, can you speak up, or can we get the sound up higher?
Sure, I'm sorry. It's part of the problem is I can't get this over here around the okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay. Okay. This is really strange. Okay. So I hope people
That
can
is
hear me
better.
better now. Okay. So I wanted to just give three, and again, I have innumerably more examples, but just time constraints, I only could really fit in three here. Just kind of examples of some of the issues I think surround that issue we have. It's not unique to the hiring power of the manager, but there's an interplay in it all. So let me start out with this document here. I obtained this through a Public Records Act request last year, and what it relates to is this. Last year, in the springtime, the Natural Resources Committee was considering amendments to our Heritage Grove ordinance. The draft that staff had submitted to the Natural Resources Committee included a provision that would have prohibited any application for a heritage grove or heritage tree on city-owned land that was subject to a pending or past land use approval. The Natural Resources Committee, which I think is 7 members, Brian, is that correct?
Yes. that is
7
correct.
members, duly appointed by the mayor, and they reviewed that provision and they removed it. And in my recollection, they removed it by a unanimous vote, and that was in the spring of last year. After that happened, in July, there was this exchange between the city attorney's office and staff regarding that exact same provision. Even after the Citizens Board removed that provision, there were still ongoing discussions between staff and the city attorney's office about getting around the removal of that proposed provision by the Natural Resources Committee. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the fact that the decision of the NRC was just not respected, and that the decision went one way, and it's time to move forward and respect that decision. Staff has the power to ask the Planning Commission and the City Commission to reinsert that language, and I fully expect that request will probably be made as it advances up the chain. But this didn't even speak to that. This was just a discussion how to kind of implement the policy otherwise, even though the Natural Resources Committee had removed the provision. And personally, I think that between the elected Citizens Board, the elected commission, and unelected staff, the real kind of like responsibility should lie to the citizenry and the elected officials. I'm not sure that I see in this exchange that kind of emphasis and channels. I did have a concern about that. Now, the second example I want to give, and this happened while I was on commission. This memo that was generated by the city attorney back in 2011. It's a lot of legalese, and I want to summarize it as succinctly as I can, what the import of the memo is, and if folks want to go into it deeper, we can. But you all may recall that when Atkinson Church expanded several years ago, there was a land use appeal of the Historic Review Board decision. And it went up to the City Commission, we remanded it, and then it went back to the AHRB, and then it came back up to the City Commission, and then got passed. At the time, I made a request as a commissioner for documentation relating to staff memos and attorney memos with staff regarding the deliberations within staff regarding that project. The response I got was, it kind of was an eye-opener for me. What Mr. Sullivan basically opined in this memorandum to the commission was that an individual city commissioner lies outside the attorney-client privilege between the city attorney and staff. He said that there were two centers of authority in the city government. One was the manager, and the other one was the commission as a whole. And at either of those two centers of authority, the commission or the manager can request information from staff and at any time. But that an individual commissioner is basically no different than a private citizen, and therefore is outside of that privilege between a communication between the city attorney and any staff member, and that only by getting a majority of the city commission to demand the information, or getting the city manager to waive the privilege between the city attorney and a member of staff, could that individual commissioner get the requested information. Now, I want to say I have concerns about that too. And let me see if I can explain it. Information. There's an old saying that knowledge is power, and that you need information to make a decision. You need information to also advocate for a position. Okay, and you might be in the minority position. And we elect city commissioners who we don't pay, and they, because they have to have jobs, don't have the time to just subsume themselves wade into all of that information. And when you put the additional burden of kind of a wall of this privilege to be able to obtain information to either make a decision or advocate for a position, even if it's a minority position, I think that's a concern. Our whole federal system is, I've only gotten through, half of the Federalist Papers in my life, but, you probably may remember from your civics classes in high school that our whole governmental system is based on the protection of the rights of the minority. And I think even a minority, someone who has a minority position as a commissioner and wants to advocate for that minority position, even if it's a 4-to-1, if you're the lone voice, you should not have to rely as a commissioner on getting 2 extra votes of a commission, because you might not get that. You might really be in a minority, or the permission of the city manager to get information such as what the city attorney is advising the planning director on a land use issue. There are a lot of issues. There's a lot of areas where I don't think individual commissioners or even the commission should have access to information. For example, the charter rightly sets up all hiring decisions of staff in the city manager. I don't think the commission or any individual commissioner has any business, for example, getting private personal information on a city employee in their personnel file. That's not appropriate. But I mean, having to have access to what the city attorney is advising the planning director on a land use issue, I think any individual commissioner should absolutely have the right to
Jim,
have the right to that.
could
Sure.
I interject a question
Sure.
here then? Earlier on, you were pointing out how the city attorney was hired, who has the authority to do that.
Mhm.
Are you suggesting that if the city attorney were hired by the city commission, those individuals would have no difficulty getting information, as you're
No,
saying? It's-
and you may recall from an earlier draft of this, that on this particular one, I said there was an additional issue regarding this question.
I'm just trying to tie it to your original premise.
There's more to it than this. Part of it, and this is really, really, really arcane, so I don't want to, it'll make everybody's eyes glazed over. It has to do with the definition of an individual commissioner as an officer. Under our charter, our city attorney is of the opinion, and I said during the last meeting there were some things I disagreed with the city attorney on. The city attorney thinks that individual commissioners are not officers. I don't agree with that. I think they are by state law. Our code and our charter don't identify city commissioners as officers, but state law does. And that's like I said, that's an hour discussion right there. But in addition to the charter change that I'm talking about, I think there are other issues in the charter that need to be addressed for that being one of them. So, yeah.
Oh, excuse me, Damon?
In regards to this particular memo, I can see how you reached that interpretation, but I also have a different interpretation from this memo, and that is that this matter had already been decided when the request for information came in. So therefore, you as the requesting commissioner were not requesting it as a commissioner because the decision had already occurred. You were requesting it as a private citizen in order to decide if you were going to do something else. If you had made the request prior to the decision being made, saying, I'm not capable of making this decision, I need more information, the information I need is X, I think at that point you would have got a different decision from Ed about whether or not you were an individual or whether or not you were acting as part of a privileged commission. Because, you know, there's 3 tests, and at the point in time when this application had, you know, it says in the footnote, was approved, no further appeal, it's final. As soon as it became a final action, the commission didn't even have the power to pull it up and change its decision because it affects land use and everything else. So you're just a citizen, in my opinion, at that point. And I think that's what Ed was saying.
Yeah.
And you know, I think, like I said, I think you'd got a different response. It was like, I can't make a decision because I don't have this information. And I think you would have gotten at least the rest of the commission to agree to you to have the information as a privileged communication because you're trying to make a decision in a quasi-judicial setting. So that's my interpretation of this memo. And if there hadn't been a decision and this was his answer, then I would share your concerns.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. I just to share, I wasn't asking for the information at the time to change the decision. Yeah, I was asking for the information for myself, in my view, as a commissioner, to understand how our decision-making process worked as a city. Mm-hmm. So, as a commissioner, I could suggest possible changes in how we, in our decision-making process. And in that sense, I think I was asking for the information as a commissioner. But I respect your, your view on it.
And I'm going to do the whole, what I hear you saying is that what you wanted to know is how staff came to the opinion that they presented to the commission. Like, was there a minority opinion that they subsumed and you weren't able to hear about that because that might have been more to your liking as opposed to the unified opinion that they presented to you and said, here is your options. At least that's your appearance, what you thought might be going on, and you had no way to check that. And that's what you were asking for? I mean, is that?
That and That and other things as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so, in my estimation, a good commissioner continue, oh, I know it. I'm not mad, so that's why I'm not yelling in it. When I'm mad, you want it all. In my estimation, you were trying to do your due diligence to continue the work you had. So therefore, you were asking, because you wanted to finish and do a good job as a commissioner. And all commissioners should want to make sure they have all the correct information.
So,
So we have 3 other people that are going to want to quiz you, and I'm wondering, do you want to make another point before we bring in some more discussion? Jim, how do you feel?
Well, let's do this.
'Cause I don't want us to go over time with, I know that a lot of people will have questions when you're through.
let's do this. Let's aim for 5 minutes, and then I'll continue on. So I don't mind answering questions. so-
Okay, all right. Bob Mahoney, would you like to pose your question or comment?
Uh-oh, he's got notes.
First of all, I want to shake your hand. Everybody saw that?
Before he clobbers me.
He's keeping the one hand occupied while.
First of all, I hadn't intended on being here tonight until I saw the agenda on my computer. First of all, this is a sticky subject. I think we all agree about that. And the question I have, what's it doing before the CIC? Why isn't it being presented before the City Commission? It's a City Commission issue. It's a charter issue. And if you are being asked by Mr. Nocita to make a decision, what kind of a decision are you going to make, and what are you going to do with it? Is it going to be here, just left here? You're going to refer it to the City Commission? And why isn't it being initiated at the City Commission? I don't think the CIC has any business considering this. You have a right to to do something with it.
So you would say that we have no right to hear any other issue that the city has
No,
before
no,
them?
no. When you say other issues, no, that's confusing the issue
I
itself.
think you're confusing the
No,
issue.
I'm not. I think this belongs before the City Commission.
Well, I agree, but
Okay.
we are all citizens here, and we have a right to know.
But you're acting as a CIC. If you were acting as individual citizens, that's fine, and you've got the right to hear this. But my point is, I think you ought to be referring it to the City Commission for their consideration.
Well, I would ask Jim what his intention in bringing it here was.
When Mr. Mahoney made his comment, I was reminded of the CIC mission statement, so I've called that up. And what it says is, we will provide an active and systematic process for community and public agency involvement in the land use process and consider and act upon a broad range of issues affecting the livability and quality of our neighborhoods. Working together with communities and lay community stakeholders to create forums for communication that result in fair and open processes to ensure quality of life in future generations. We value open, honest communication, diversity, and mutual trust and respect and accountability. And the roles and responsibility include, in the bullet points there, allow individuals to bring concerns and offer ideas. So I consider this as, a forum to start raising ideas, and if the CIC wants to make a recommendation to the commission out of this discussion or a series of discussions and study sessions, we can do that. But I think this is the appropriate forum for that, or one appropriate forum for that.
If I read between the lines, what I hear is that Mr. Nocita is saying that the city staff manipulates the decisions being made by the commission and the planning commission, either through the massage of information, the withholding of information, or the manner in which they present information. That's what I hear. Now, as he said, information is powerful, and you need information to make decisions. How that information comes about that's the gray area there. What are we going to place before the Planning Commission and the City Commission for their consideration, for their decision to either approve or deny an application? That's what I hear, and that's dangerous.
Bob, it took almost 3 months to come to consensus on it. It met almost 8 different of the roles responsibility of the bullet points. And again, it's his point of view. It's not the CIC's. And civics is a very important. They don't teach civics in high school anymore really much. But I think our citizens should understand civics. I think you should, and I should, and we all should.
I understand civics.
And basically, it's just a little bit of a background that I think is important to people as much as a water rate rollback or rusty pipes, school closures. Civics is a big part of our society in this city.
Exactly.
And that's all this is.
Exactly. Well, I don't know if it's all it is. I think it's a little bit more. I think there's between the lines here. And there's 1,000 different definitions of transparency.
Well, I
1,000.
think you're opening up that dialogue. I don't think the presentation was opening up that dialogue.
Anyway, I
so
think this
exciting.
and I think that's the problem. It shouldn't really be. This isn't a battle that should be fought here before this commission. It should be fought before the elected officials. Either we're going to review the charter on the initiation of Mr. Nacita's comments, or we're not going to.
Bob, it's not a battle. This is an open discussion. This is trying to provide information about so that we understand the perceptions and have factual case studies to allow us to be better informed about what is right. And then if we as a body decide that it should be referred forward, then we could make that referral request. It's just a request, but whenever we know more about how information is developed, and maybe later you will stay on and we'll talk about some of the information about how South End Road transportation information has been brought together. And I've had to dig very hard to get that information.
Bob,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I mean it when I say this is exciting. Our meetings generally are pretty milquetoasty. And tonight, we're all having a say. I think it is a wonderful thing. Dan, do you want to come up now with your questions and comments? Jim, you're okay with?
Sure,
We
of course.
still got time, so you can continue when it's...
My name's Dan Holliday. Just a little background. I'm a former city commissioner. I served 4 years on the city commission, served on the school board, various county boards and other things, and I'm the current chairman of the Friends of Willamette Falls Media Center, which runs Willamette Falls Media Center, which provides the transparency that you see today on the television.
Thank you.
So I guess I just have a few things to say. As my mom used to fondly tell me, just because everybody else is jumping off High Rocks Bridge doesn't necessarily mean you need to. So when we get this big list of, say, all these other cities are doing it this way, and it's just Oregon City and Tualatin, if you look at the broader picture, all of the cities in the state, those numbers change dramatically. We look at the model charter, and if you look at the author of the model charter, there's a little story behind that. He was a city attorney over in East, Pendleton, Umatilla, something 15 or so years ago. He got terminated by his city manager. And a few years later, he's working for this law firm, and the League of Oregon Cities comes to them and says, we want you to write a model charter for cities. And so one of his little things that he put in this model charter was a way to prevent another city manager from being terminated by, or another city attorney being terminated by a city manager. So you wanted it to happen, from a political standpoint. And when we're talking about political standpoints, that's where I really have an issue, because as we have seen in the county and other places, elections mean things. And if a majority turns over on a city commission, that can, if we were doing it this way, that could facilitate the termination of an attorney. And an attorney, kind of like the municipal court judge, really needs to be able to be just the attorney for the city and not necessarily being under some kind of political control. Because once they're under that political control, now they're saying, I have to find a way to make a ruling that pleases the city commission rather than make a decision or a ruling that is the best thing for the city.
Chair
So-
Watts, we were talking about 5 minutes before I could get back to my topic, and I noticed it's 7:47, so I just like to have a
Okay.
little time control here.
Okay, let's give Dan a few more minutes to.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
The other big issue that I have is that while there are a couple of little case studies here, I still have yet to see an actual justification. This seems to be a solution in search of a problem. I haven't really seen anything that really jumps out at me that says, wow, this is something we really need to change our charter for. And a big part of that is cost control. Let's not forget that Schubert and Bear are not inexpensive folks. So if any individual city commissioner has the ability to just call up and say, I want to hear what you have to say about this or that. Remember, every time an attorney picks up the phone, the clock starts ticking, and that's expensive. And if we were to go back and look at the time that Mr. Nocita was on the city commission, those legal fees were dramatically higher than any time in the past for any individual city commissioner. So I think a lot of this is really just looking for a second bite at the apple. Because let's not forget that the city commission has already decided this recently. I don't know, Doug, you can probably update me, but 3 or 4 years ago, in a 4-1 decision, Mr. Nocita, being the only yes vote, said they don't want to put this charter amendment forward. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I've got 2 other people up, but Jim,
Yeah.
would it be okay for you to?
Yeah, I
Let's
want-
have Jim come back in, and we'll get the mayor and Tom O'Brien after that.
Yeah, Mr. Holliday is incorrect on several of his facts. And one of the things that he's incorrect about is that when we tabled the charter amendment, I was in favor of that tabling. That was a unanimous vote to table that question. And part of it was because of the kind of political pressure that Mr. Holliday and others brought to bear on the commission at that time. So I don't really agree with what Mr. Holliday says on that, or his unsubstantiated charge about attorney's fees. So just to move on, the last case study I want to talk about is an incident that involved us in our relationship with Clackamas County. Back in 2011.
September 7th.
What's that?
September 7th, 2011.
Yeah, but the genesis of the issue went back before then. But on September 7th, 2011, staff put on the agenda, and the City Commission passed with incredible speed, a change to our telecommunications ordinance. And if you look at the video of that, there are even some jokes cracked during the meeting about how quickly we were changing this ordinance and doing it, not only that, but on a second reading as well. What we didn't know at the time was that one of the entities who would have been subject to this charter, to this code change, was Clackamas County. And that emerged later when 3 commissioners on December 7th, 2011, actually appeared before the City Commission objecting to the fact that the city had made that change. And I have underlined here, you have Commissioner Damon saying Oregon City initially raised no issues regarding a franchise fee during the permitting process, but changed its telecommunication ordinance with no advance notice to the county. On that evening also, the city manager indicated here, but published minutes aren't all that is there. You have to watch the videotape to get the full record of what was said during a meeting. And I went to the video to actually type out what the city manager said at the time. He made a comment at that meeting on December 7th, 2011, that about 5 months prior, which would have been in the summertime, he had cautioned the county administrator in a meeting with 15 other city managers that would need to make sure they had both the franchise agreement and all the right-of-way permits they needed before they started construction. I don't have a recollection, in all honesty. At the time I was, very distracted by Mr. Holliday and others' recall campaign. But I really honestly don't have a recollection of ever having been informed when that ordinance came up in September of 2011 that Clackamas County was one of the parties that would have been the target of this ordinance change. And I'm very concerned about that. And I think it is, a fair question in, the deciding what information is pertinent for the city commission to make a decision, that the city attorney should be really kind of like a watchdog for the city commission to make sure that it has the appropriate information, to make decisions. And I think this is, a really strong argument for having the city attorney, respond to the city commission. I mean, the county is obviously a very different animal than Comcast, and there are obvious, very political consequences to making a decision that's going to impact the county, because we're the county seat. We deal with the county on so many different levels, and I'm concerned. I'm concerned. When you change a land use ordinance, you typically notify parties that this land use change might impact your property. I'm concerned that Commissioner Damon would have to make that comment that they weren't notified by the city that this telecommunications ordinance was relating to them and would affect them. And I am, very concerned about the fact that there was not disclosure on that matter. So that's probably, by my own admission, the most controversial point I'll make this evening on that. And with that, I'll. You know what? I think because we're running up against the clock now, I can't call up. I thought I would be able to call up the model charter for the people to see, but I will point in the model charter to the fact that the model charter does recommend on page
8, section 34, city attorney.
In the handout that everybody has.
Yeah, I mean, it does, substantiate the chart I made. And I think actually that if you do research across the state, you will find, in contrast to what was said earlier, that most cities across the state have the city attorney hired by the commission or the council. I will point out, too, that Josephine County actually has the city attorney elected directly by the voters, which is another option that could be. So I'm going to close, getting to Mr. Mahoney's point. I think, and this goes to Mr. LaSalle's point from earlier, too, about charter changes. We have had, the thing I passed out last month was a memo that the city attorney's office talked about a charter amendment process. And I think that date on that was 2010. I mean, and that's how far back the city commission has been considering charter review. And it just never, ever happens. And, we get a lot of excuses why it doesn't happen, but it just never happens. Like we're short-staffed. And I agree, our staff does, get blood out of a stone. We're very short-staffed, and our staff does a great job on getting a lot done on a shoestring. I want to make a proposal, if you all want to continue the conversation, to recommend to the City Commission, because their goal-setting session is coming up, a way that I think won't cost the city money or staff time, additional staff time for a charter review process. And that is to propose to the Commission that this body be the Charter Review Committee. The review, the schedule I pointed out last time that the City Attorney generated talks about a Charter Review Committee. This is an already established committee. It already has staff. Actually, I think the most important staff member for a charter review process would be the City Attorney. I mentioned that at the last meeting. But it's on that kind of like long-term charter review process where a lot of these issues could be addressed, sorted out, and vetted and decided yea or nay. But the Commission has agreed over several years that the charter needs to be reviewed. But we've just not gotten around to do it. But I think we could get over that if we, made a proposal to use existing structures like this one that wouldn't cost any extra money to do that process. So, with that, I will close
Okay.
and take whatever arrows people want to sling.
And we are bumping up against the time frame that I had, but I want everyone who wants to speak to have an opportunity. If you can limit your comments to 3 minutes, that would be appropriate. And we've got 4 people that would like to speak, so let's go ahead and start with our mayor. Mayor Neely, would you like to come forward and give your thoughts?
Just for the record, there were 3 things that were put on for charter considerations, and James Ncita is quite right that it was a unanimous decision to table all those. The reason the charter review is postponed is because we wanted to take care of the water rates issue to any extent we could. We broke that into 2 planned votes. We put one before the people. We had not put the other one before the people. One was for the rollback, and the other one was for the 3% cap. And that was the reason that decision's been postponed. And I think James Ncita has indicated that's been an important goal for several commissions, so I'm not questioning that. Regarding the specific issue that came up on the Natural Resource Committee's recommendations in terms of heritage tree and heritage tree groves, there are only 3 governing boards that we have, and that is the Historic Review Board, the Planning Commission, the City Commission. Any decisions made by the Historic Review Board or the Planning Commission can be appealed to the City Commission. So the fact that an advisory board might have taken out a paragraph or had a paragraph removed that they recommended be put in or anything of that nature, they could come to the commission at the time an ordinance was put forward and ask that be put forward and put back in. But they don't have specific any authority in terms of setting up ordinances. The only other thing I would say is that I would think something like whether the city commission hires the attorney or the city manager hires the attorney, that would be something that the city commission could itself put in the charter if it felt it was needed. Other than James Ncita, in terms of his commission time, it had never been put forward as a recommendation at all. The discussions had come up occasionally whether we should hire our own attorney or whether we should go ahead with the process that we have now. The point is we have some of the best excellent legal counsel that anybody has, particularly in land use planning. I mean, the legal counsel we've had has been tremendous. We've won a lot of court cases because of the attorneys that had been hired by the city manager. And I guess I would say, if the system is working well, why change it?
Thank you.
I do want to respond to the mayor's comment. I'm not challenging the quality of Mr. Sullivan and his work. Mr. Sullivan, as I mentioned at the last meeting, was my professor at Lewis and Clark Law School. And I respect him as a giant of, our system. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, if we had a charter review commission, I would want this to be a feather in his cap before his retirement. My issue is not at all with Mr. Sullivan. It's how the structure of the relationship between the city attorney and the commission and staff affects information control and access as a general matter.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't see so much the transparency issue being raised, but it was raised earlier at another meeting here. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a more transparent government than Oregon City's. Everything is available on the web. All decisions are made. You can go back and look at where the decisions were made and so forth. I think we're probably one of the most transparent city governments you can find.
Tom O'Brien.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity. First, I'd like to point out to those who are not aware of it, our goal 4 that the City Commission has established for their own working. It basically says that to open and maintain communications with the citizens. And I think that's what we have the opportunity this evening to do. I personally am very grateful to Mr. Nocita, resident of the city, citizen Nocita, relative to his coming before us in December and suggesting strongly to us that we read the charter of our city, which is the government plan for what the city should be doing. I took that advice, I read the charter, and I find that the charter was developed 31 years ago. We have recently gone through in our own organization, the Citizen Involvement Council, a revision of our own bylaws as well as a revision of the suggested bylaws for the 12 different neighborhood associations. And I think it's good that all organizations review those kinds of documents by which they operate on a regular basis. In reviewing the current charter, which was drawn up in 1982, I find that Section 29 is actually contradicting Section 7, and no one has caught it in 31 years. Or at least they've done nothing about it if they did see it. Also in Section 21C2, it stipulates, he, referring to the city manager, shall see that all ordinances are enforced. Well, we have a long history in this city of city managers who have refused to enforce our ordinances. And bless Mr. Sullivan, our attorney, about a year and a half ago, when the Code Enforcement Department supervisor was here before the City Commission, because a citizen was having problems with what they felt were strong arm enforcement in their case. And the leader of that organization, the department, was saying to the City Commission that, well, they kind of enforce these ordinances selectively. I can remember Ed Sullivan sitting in the very chair I'm in, and he said, I feel very uncomfortable with selective enforcement of our ordinances. So in our charter, it is the responsibility of our city manager to make sure that the staff responsible for making the enforcement possible do it. That's all I have to say. Thank you for helping me to understand our charter.
Paul.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Jim for coming before us, because I've always believed in citizen involvement and citizen empowerment. And this is quite a bit about that, and this is what this group is all about, too. And it's where we have a chance to be a citizen overseer of the process and and take it back and forth. This is within our neighborhoods and us listening back and forth. And this is really, I think, is an appropriate way for us to get on board with this whole idea of open government. And if there's good things and if there's warts, then there's warts. That's what they are, but there's a lot of good things. And I agree with Doug and that we have a lot of positive parts of our city and our government that we should be proud of, but this group is something that I think we should be really proud of because it's a core of citizen involvement. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Joyce?
Yeah, I think it is. What I want to remind everybody is on the very first page of this packet that Mr. Nocita provided for us, Exhibit A, where it says only in Tualatin and Oregon City. Make sure that's within the urban growth boundary, only 2 cities. A little further research on that data, and as some of you may know, I do have a degree in mathematics, and so I do like statistics. And the City of Oregon City Recorder, Nancy Ide, was able to provide some additional information regarding other cities in Oregon as to who appoints their city attorney by the city manager or appointed by city council. And in this survey, a quarter of these were appointed by city manager. And Oregon City is within, with some other very nice cities such as Bend, Talent, Springfield, Grants Pass, Baker City, and Cottage Grove. And as was stated earlier by Dan Holliday, is just because a majority of cities are doing something one way doesn't mean that it's the best for Oregon City. And make sure that when you provide statistics that you give complete information. Even though it did say on your chart that it did have the urban growth boundary, just make sure that that's clear also on page 1 of your packet of information to us. Thank you.
Todd?
I wanted to thank Jim for his presentation and the Executive Council for allowing a forum. As a member of the Citizen Involvement Council, I think the more education we can get about these issues in the city, like this issue, which I didn't know anything about. Obviously, for the newer people here, there's a lot of history in some of these issues, and the fact that I think it is kind of an uncomfortable issue means that there's some interesting things going on there. And I think to kind of mirror on what Mr. Holliday said, there's a lot of between the lines on everyone that's speaking that are not being said. So I think there's a lot of points here that we're not hearing a lot. And then I did want to make a remark. Mr. Holliday said concerned about if the council hired the attorney, that if the council turned over, that the attorney could be fired. Well, the other side of the coin is if the attorney isn't making the city manager happy, the city manager could fire him. So you can argue both things there. But anyway, I wanted to say that I took this as more of an educational opportunity rather than a particular call to action. And I really appreciate that, and I hope that we can do more of this type of thing, because I feel that the more I understand about how the Oregon City government works and what the differences are, the better I can be as a community involvement member. Thank you.
Kathy?
Yes. I've been here long enough to know how him, from way back when he was up as a city commissioner, and not always a happy felt he was being persecuted. Yeah. And I then see him doing the same thing, kind of. Truthfully, we all have issues and prejudice, and I want to thank Mr. Nocita for educating us, and I believe Tom O'Brien and Todd Last said it very well for me, and I thank you very much. It's an educational. It's not something we all have to fight about, unless some people choose to.
Amy?
Thank you, Jim. I think back to what Damon has brought up in other meetings and Bob mentioned tonight, where do we go from here? I would like to, propose that if there members here tonight or anyone watching this video has further desire to research this and push farther, that they get a hold of Mr. Nocita. They can find a way to move forward if they want to move it to the City Commission, as we've mentioned in other meetings. I think that would be appropriate.
On that
outside
point,
of this.
Secretary Wilhite, another thing I forgot to mention earlier that I think would be fascinating, either in the context of the CIC or otherwise, is to just research the history of our city charter from our founding and its evolution and change. In researching Blue Heron, I came across in 1923 the campaign to change our charter from a mayor-ward system, which it had been since the founding of the city, to a commission. The reason our city commission is called a commission because, like Portland, it became a commission in 1923, and then they changed it to the council manager form of government, but left the name of commission. So if you ever want to know why our commissioners are called commissioners, it's actually an anachronism from the day when it was a commission, and like Portland, each of the commissioners had responsibility for 2 or 3 departments. And that's also the year that we instituted the city manager as well. So it's very interesting stuff.
Okay, we've got Kathy.
It's a short.
There'll be a
I
free
can-
time.
I
You
can
gotta
do
wait
two-
your turn.
2 words.
Okay,
Thank you
Damon
for
is
the
up.
articles.
Damon is up.
Well, since we're in the throwing arrows thing and you asked for people to throw it, I'll throw one at the mayor.
He'll throw back.
While I don't think that this particular issue is an issue that, like somebody said, that it's, it ain't broke, so why are we trying to fix it? The flip side of it, though, is that, hearkening back to my days as a labor negotiator, it's a lot easier to fix something when there isn't a problem and everybody can sit down and calmly discuss it. And just like you do maintenance on your car before things break, it's better to at least look at it and see whether or not it's something that needs to be fixed. So I appreciate the fact, my personal opinion is it isn't broke and it doesn't need maintenance. But bringing it up is, check engine lights on, and it's good that we're looking at it. And so I appreciate the fact that it's been brought forward and it's being discussed. So there's.
I was misquoted. I did not say it wasn't broke. I said it was working well.
That's right. and that's what the SS in Auschwitz said too.
Amber, did you have a comment?
Thank you. I had actually, I guess, a couple of questions, maybe a comment. Jim, could you confirm for me, did I hear it correctly that you would like the CIC to review the charter? Or were you referring that more as the city commission? That
As the mayor said, it's ultimately the city commission that makes the decision on whether to have a charter review process. What the form of that charter review process takes place there could be multiple forms.
Got it.
And what I was proposing is that if there is a charter review committee as part of a charter review launched by the city commission, I think this CIC would be ideal because, we have good staff, staffing the committee already. We have a very group of, people who are already leaders and step up and are interested in the topic. And I think it would also allow more interest. I mean, as Chair Watts said, it's not milquetoast. It means something. And for everybody here to be part of something like that they could in turn take back to their neighborhood associations to draw more citizens into the process through this already established forum. I think that would be a good thing.
Okay. So I'm not done. It appeared to me in at least a couple examples that perhaps part of your concern, at least this is the way I took it, is it's really more on some staff decisions and much less to do with transparency and who gets to hire and fire the city attorney.
Well, again, just to go back to the beginning of the presentation, this presentation used to have, I think, 4 sections to it. And it was just because of the time constraints that it got pared down to just the city attorney question. In the context of a charter review, that went on for weeks and months, then it would be possible to go into every detail of how the structure of the charter affects information flows, both to the public and between branches of government, the attorney, the manager, and the commission.
Sure. And then the last piece is just simply, I do have a concern if individual city commissioners were empowered to the point of being able to pick up the phone or email the city attorney and just start clicking dollars. How does a city budget for something like that? That's the part that makes me the most fearful. And one city commissioner becoming all-powerful, if you will, and along with that, a pretty lengthy tab.
Just to clarify, my point was not about the ability of an individual commissioner to seek advice from the city attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mr. Holliday's comment was completely specious and just a hit piece. What my point was about an individual city commissioner's ability to access advice that's already been made between the city attorney and staff, which, by the way, also has a cost.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Okay? So my point, I mean, you can set rules. The commission certainly can set rules to say, for example, an individual commissioner has the ability to seek 4 hours of advice from the attorney per month, or none, or 10. That's a rule that can be set, sure. But the point that I'm trying to make here is not about the ability of an individual commissioner to seek advice from the attorney. It's about whether an individual commissioner has the ability to access information that's already been generated that happens to be between the city attorney and staff.
I appreciate your clarification.
Okay. One last comment from Kathy.
No, I just really wanted to say thank you, Jim. I have enjoyed your articles in educational.
Oh, there's one coming out tomorrow.
Oh, is it? Okay, I will look forward to it. I really have enjoyed those. And job well done on it.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
all. And Katie, one last question. How do I eject my disc on this thing?
You reach over and
You
go
can just
yoink.
pull it out. You don't
Down
have to
lower
just
right-hand
get
corner.
Isn't there typically a function that says eject so you can safely eject your disc?
Yeah, if you pull it
Lower
out
right-
fast
lower
enough.
Where's
right
Tom?
corner.
Where's Tom Dial? Is he still here? Oh, all right.
Jealous.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. From my own part, my brain is full, and I think it's going to explode. So I really appreciate the members of the CIC. You guys were so attentive, and your comments were so right on the mark. And our audience, your comments were also very cute and appropriate, and it made us all think deeply about the issues that Jim brought up, and both sides. I think I can fairly honestly say that as a CIC, we love working with the city. They treat us well. They provide wonderful services to us so that we can be here each month and serve each other. And so we're not looking to create enemies by any means. We're just looking to learn more about our city and how it works and work well together. And I hope that we can do that continuously, even though some of us got the hair on the back of our necks up tonight. I hope that you can get over it and just think about how we can do better working together.
I'd like to amend. I'd like to say that I think that the guests' comments were acute.
What did I say?
Cute.
Oh, they were cute. Okay, we are beyond our schedule, but we still have room always for the things that are on our agenda. And up next is our mayor with some news about vacancies on city boards and committees.
Not that there's vacancies, but
That
not
he's
at the beginning of the
pursuing.
year. They're not
Did I say?
making
Did I
any.
say?
That he's
cute
pursuing.
vacancies?
I was wondering if we're the vacancies.
Yeah, the CAC
About
has
24 of
23
them.
vacancies available now.
I have the pleasure of appointing most people to most committees, and I've never unappointed anybody.
Never disappointed anyone.
What? You've never pulled anyone?
I never unappointed anybody. We've got several vacancies that remain for this year's positions that were either vacated or, well, they're not vacated. These are all positions that would start a new term with this year. We've extended the deadline date. So we've already filled some of those, but any based on people that made their requests for applications at the end of October of last year. But we're now taking applications until, what is it, February 3rd, I believe? And I would encourage you to advise anybody you know. I believe you're going to receive an email that has the same attachment to it. So if you've got an email list you send things out, please do so. The attachment will be there. And so that's my time. I didn't use 3 minutes.
No, you didn't. Thank you.
No,
We saved
and
up
I think
past
you have
the
some
question.
speakers. Yeah.
Sure.
What is a non-city resident?
Non-city, we've got certain positions because of their nature that we have slots for people that don't live in the city. One, a good example is the library board, because the library district extends beyond the city.
Oh.
We have one, I believe, on the traffic advisory committee, because I think there's only one position available, but what we do here in the city impacts people that live in the rural communities as well. But they are specific slots that are only for people that are not residents of the city outside our boundaries. There are very few of them, but there are some.
Oh, I think we have a couple more questions for you, Mr. Mayor. Tom?
I just have a couple of comments, actually. I want to thank Doug personally in front of the camera for the fine job he has been doing since he's mayor in getting these positions filled. I fought with his predecessor for years trying to get people appointed so that we had citizen involvement in the city's operations, and Doug has done a tremendous job. One of the other areas, Doug, that does have an outsider, there's a Beaver Creek resident who is on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. So I'm not sure how that plays in, or...
Yeah, and I don't recall the reasons that occurred, but yeah.
Okay. Michael?
Doug, I had a question. I know that there's, and I'm glad we're getting these out there. I think if people want to take a picture of that and put it on Facebook, that's an easy way to post it. Also, there are, on the city's website, there are committees that are closed. There's for instance, a parking committee or commission that's been closed. I think the charter reads that they should be. How do they close them, and when do they open them?
We've had, actually I can't answer the question of why it closed. There are some committees that have been ad hoc committees that have been formed, and it may have been one of those. There have been some committees that, for whatever reasons, were dissolved. I recommended initially the Natural Resource Committee, and then it disappeared, and then I recommended it came back. I know Rocky Smith's anxious for the Arts Commission to come forward too again. So I can't speak really to the process of closing one. But my guess is that Parking Advisory Committee may have been an ad hoc committee.
And it was. I was on that, and it was set up for a specific 6-month period to study downtown and the Bluff area for parking.
Awesome, thanks.
Wait, do you have another question?
Tom? Yeah.
Yeah,
Tom
I just
did.
had another comment. One of the things that we have been doing at our neighborhood association meetings, and I would pass this along to others so they might use it, we actually print out in advance of our neighborhood association meetings the application forms so that we can hand them out at the meeting when we're talking about this and convince people and twist their arm to sign up for some of these. I don't know how successful we've been, but at least if we make the effort, we might get 1 or 2 people who come forward and volunteer to serve in a citizen capacity. And I think that's worth trying.
And I would say that I have actually applied for a couple of these vacancies and others at different times. Doing it online takes like a minute and a half. There isn't a huge essay you write. There's a very limited space that I actually filled up. And so, I mean, it takes your name, your address, you're interested, why, what do you think this committee does? And, yes, I'm truthful in the information, done. And, I mean, it literally took like 2 minutes for me to fill out the form, so.
I should describe the process that I operate under and decided to do it from the very beginning. I let the respective committees do the interviewing of the applicants. Basically, they know better than I do what the committees are doing, and I think they're in a bit better position to do it. With one notable exception, I've always followed the committee's recommendation. The notable exception was one committee in which there were 6 members at the time. Three supported one and 3 supported the other. So I actually had to make a decision, but beyond that, I followed the recommendations of the committee.
Doug, I'm glad to hear that you're staying for our discussion on the budget.
He is?
He said he was going to stay longer.
He didn't know he was. Okay, John, you're up.
All right. So since you wanted an exciting meeting, I thought I'd talk about transportation related. It seems like all you people seem to care about. We've got underground utilities too, which are also very important, but nobody ever cares about those. But
The water pipe.
I wanted to mention a couple things. First of all, I just wanted to give you a reminder. The one group that's not listed on that list that the mayor handed around was our Transportation Advisory Committee. We've got a full membership at this point, and there's representatives from the business community as well as outside the city, so it's a well-represented group. It's an active group. We're pretty close to 10 meetings a year, and those meetings are on the 3rd Tuesday of the month. And we've taken on several hot topics, and typically the room is empty with the exception of the commission. And I'd like to see that change, because I know, especially, just the conversations that I have out of this group, it would make sense to me that this committee have a subcommittee, if you will, or at least a representative that would attend those meetings. I know Bob is on both groups, so he's at all meetings, but he's one voice, I guess, and I'm not sure, because I'm at this meeting, that he necessarily shares all the information that we discussed at the TAC. But we have a pretty complete agenda. I don't know if you've worked with Kathy Griffin or not, but she's our staff person for that meeting. She does an outstanding job of putting together a full agenda and all the support documentation that goes with it. So, I'd encourage you to participate in that, because a lot of the issues that this group gets frustrated with, I think, are related to transportation. And like this group, I think the Transportation Advisory Committee likes the respect of knowing that they're the Transportation Advisory Committee, and they're an advisory committee to the City Commission. So when important issues come up, I hear them taking those on, even when people aren't there to advocate for those things. If we convey something that's come up at this meeting, we typically have a pretty deep conversation about it and try to come to some conclusions that hopefully would be well received by whoever it is in this group that maybe had brought that up. The other thing I wanted to mention, a past meeting at the December 18th City Commission meeting, I did a presentation on regional transportation planning, and I went through a lot of things that people may not know with regard to who the players are in transportation planning in the region and what some of the plays are that they're doing. And I guess again, that it's not always the most exciting topic, but I think I went through it in about a half an hour, and I would encourage you to take a look at that video, because it talks a fair amount about Metro and how Metro funds things and how they make decisions. As the same with the state, and how some of the federal funding is allocated across the region. And then a reminder that tomorrow at the work session, which is at 5:30. Doug, do you remember when our work session is? 5:30?
5:30.
Yeah, I think it's at 5:30. TriMet will be here to talk about transit service in Oregon City, as well as in the southwest region, so say from Milwaukee through Gladstone, maybe as far, basically Clackamas County. So there's been a lot of concern about the loss of bus service, and this will be a really good opportunity for you to hear what TriMet thinks about that, what some of the things that they've been doing that they see as improvements, and it will give at least our city commission, I'm guessing, well, there'll be speaker cards as well, so you'll have an opportunity to talk about that and react to some of their presentations. So I think that's a good thing. Jonathan, you're here. I'm assuming you're here to talk about Illuminate Oregon City.
I didn't put the card in, but you can talk about it.
Okay. So this is another event. Well, before I get to that, I wanted to pass out something that came across my desk, which I thought was amazing. So I'll just kind of ship these each direction. Shuttle in the Woods is something that Lake Oswego and oh, now I'm forgetting the name of the not Merrillhurst, but the
Mary's Woods.
Mary's Woods. Thank you. They have they actually got a grant to utilize their van service at the retirement center there, and they're now providing bus service between Oregon City and Lake Oswego, and there's several schedules several schedules, and they're showing the route in this brochure. It's something that they're trying. They're doing this together with TriMet, and they will stop. They will even do flag stops if you call them and ask them to deviate. You can flag them down if you're standing on the roadside and you want to ride and you want to get to Lake Oswego or back. They will actually stop for you and pick you up. And I believe this is free of charge. So share that with your neighborhoods, because it's another. It goes between Lake Oswego, goes up to Oregon City Evangelical Church. It takes on part of the route that we currently don't have, which is South End to Warner Parrott. So that's a pretty big service right now. I don't know how much activity they've got from the service. I haven't actually seen one of their shuttles, but I hear they're in town. So take a look at that. And then in closing, I'll just mention Illuminate Oregon City. That's the project that Main Street Oregon City, the City of Oregon City, Clackamas County Arts Alliance, Metro, can't remember all the other partners, but they've hired an artist to illuminate the elevator shaft and the underside of the elevator. So the freshly painted elevator at night will have a video art depiction. We don't exactly know what it's going to look like, but Main Street. Did I forget Main Street? How do I forget Main Street? Thank you, Katie. So that's January 22nd at 6:30. The idea is come down for dinner on Main Street and enjoy a good dinner at one of the many fine establishments down there. There will be a street party, if you will. 7th Street will be closed between Main Street and Railroad, and actually a section of Railroad will also be closed. And I think we're going to have some kind of alcohol down there for those that might need that or want that, and a couple of vendors and music, right, John? Are we thinking about some music? And not we'll have a couple of guest speakers, but we won't be too long with that. We'll kind of keep it to the fun and games of the event. So we encourage you to share that with I know a lot of you don't have meetings between now and then, so if you there's a website. Jonathan's created a beautiful website. I forgot the website address, Jonathan. IlluminateOregonCity.org. I should have remembered that. So send that out to your neighborhood contacts, because we'd like to have it be a big event. So with that, okay. I'll answer questions.
Paul.
I'll pass now.
Speechless.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Amy, mark that in the Okay.
Hey, Paul, just something. I was going to mention this in private, but we've heard a fair amount about speeding in Kenema. Everybody remember that? How many can forget that? We have ordered an electronic speed sign that will be one of our rotational ones. But we've got a spot picked out just for you on 5th Avenue.
In Kenema.
In Kenema. That's work that was accomplished through your Transportation Advisory Committee. So there you go.
Tom?
Yes, I wanted to go back, John, to the Transportation Advisory Committee. I personally would like to be able to attend some of your meetings. However, a number of us in this room who might have an interest in attending your meetings are unable to do so because we're tied up in the Chiefs Advisory Committee meetings the identical time that you're on. Is there any possibility that you could sometimes maybe alternate your schedule to be some other evening?
I noticed you didn't ask the guy with the gun if he
Well, we're having to deal with both the police department and the fire department if we ask the other guys to do it, so I thought I'd start with John.
Well, part of the problems is this room right here and its availability. And
can come back up where we
it's
meet.
pretty tight with, well, except for we televise those and record. Well, we don't televise those, but we record those. So that's my answer. And yeah, I would, it's just police chiefs, right? Whether they bring the police dog once in a while. I mean,
Oh, come on.
This is not an important group, I don't appoint anybody to it.
Kathy?
Tom, actually, we cancel 2 of our meetings during the year with the TAC so that we can go to the Chiefs Advisory meetings.
Good. That's nice of you.
Yeah.
Kathy has a comment.
Yeah, I had a comment and a question. Okay, I looked at the map. That goes down, it just goes Warner Parrott down south end over the hill. It's not going out to where
We can walk to Warner Park.
Oh, we can walk.
Well, Kathy, I know
We can ride
where
our
you
bike.
live, and it's pretty unlikely
Yeah,
that
it-
anybody's going to go
I know
out that
that's-
far, except for maybe the mayor, who,
Thank you,
you know.
sir.
Do you know if they
But
have
I-
bike racks?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you know if they have bike racks?
No. My second question is, on the transportation with the TriMet, are they going to bring up where you know where I live on South End? Because
Well, I think they want to. They obviously know that they've reduced service, and they're interested in increasing that. But I question whether or not they'll get that far out anytime soon.
Well, how about just, there was one time down Center Point, take a right on to Partlow, and then, so, I mean, I could walk that far. I've done that.
Well, I will say this.
Come to the meeting.
You can come to the
Yeah.
meeting, but we have shared with them that concern, Kathy. So
Yeah.
it's not like it's not off the table. It's just, I really think the story that we're hearing from TriMet is services that, especially cities that are on the fringe, like Oregon City, Wilsonville, some of those that are really kind of not in the core, I guess, or
We're not money makers.
a little harder to serve. That they're suggesting more localized solutions, similar to this Shuttle Woods.
Yeah.
But this is a temporarily funded thing. I don't know how long this will last. So it's one of those things that it's. I think TriMet feels like they provide service. Obviously, not enough.
Well, and we know somebody that drives the CAT bus, and he said, they lost some of their funding, so they had to cut down on some of their routes even in the city, but they were hoping to get a grant again, so they can, get back up to the standard they want. So maybe we have to look into making sure, if we got something started here, how it would be funded.
Damon?
And I'm not sure whether this is for John, the mayor, but for the Illuminate OC, are we going to make sure that West Lynn doesn't sabotage it like they did with the falls, where the first 2 colors that came up were West Lynn's colors?
We'll work on that.
Paul?
John, did we have anybody from Oregon City attend the passenger rail last study group in Salem? Because I'm still concerned that we don't lose the option of how passenger rail could come to, and maybe sometime in the future we could have maybe the passenger rail station associated with Blue Heron site, because I've seen some of the scenarios where that may not be possible because we have such limited abilities to get maybe 1 million visitors to the Blue Heron site. Passenger rail is a possibility of providing something, and if we brought the rail station downtown, it could be really a major feather in the hat of creating more prominence to downtown. And,
Paul,
and it was originally there, so why not consider it?
At that meeting on the 8th, or on the 18th, December 18th, I spoke a little bit about the passenger rail, Oregon passenger rail. But quick answer is there's still 2 routes on the table for consideration, that they're moving forward with environmental impact work. That's kind of what happens in 2014. Not a lot more meetings in 2014 about Oregon passenger rail. So Oregon passenger rail is the proposed rail alignment from Eugene to Vancouver, Washington, and actually beyond. But that's the route that they're looking at. And through Oregon City, there's 2 routes. One puts it on the existing Union Pacific rail route, and with that route, there would be, it sounds pretty certain, a stop in Oregon City, whether it be at the existing Amtrak station or something different. If there was a different proposal and that came out of the Blue Heron work, but an Oregon City stop. The other and cost-wise, that seems to be more favorable, although UP's not excited about it. The other alternative comes down 205 and follows the 205 alignment and crosses the Willamette River in Oregon City. And where exactly, but it basically would bypass the Blue Heron site because it'd be too close, it'd be too far north, right? Just like 205 is. And keep in mind it's high-speed rail, so the intent is not to be stopping a lot and not be meandering out of your target destination. And that 205 alignment, the problem that we see with that is that we learned recently that alignment doesn't necessarily include an Oregon City stop, even though it goes through Oregon City. So the planning group and the rail industry is pushing real hard to have 3 stops in the metro area, whatever the alignment is. So if it were the alignment down 205, they'd have a stop in Wilsonville and a stop somewhere near I-84 and 205, and then Portland, of course. So the other alignment, which is on the Union Pacific alignment, is Oregon City, Milwaukee, and Portland. So, and I was at that meeting in Salem, Paul.
Okay. But Wilsonville wants it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Amber, do you have anything to dazzle us with?
Well, of course I do.
Good.
Okay. First of all, I wanted to report on the Officer Libke fundraiser that was held, December 8th, thereabouts. It was held at McLaughlin Place, and just from that event alone, from essentially those who donated to the pancake breakfast, we had raised, about $2,200. In addition to that, McLaughlin Place owners donated another, I think it was $2,000 on top of that. And then that was also when the manager of Hagen's brought a almost $12,500 check to present that had been raised from the generosity of all of the amazing customers at Hagen and who had donated at each of those check stands. So just another example of how amazing the community just really stepped up and played whatever role each one of us could play in support of Officer Libke and his family. So congratulations, everybody. Let's see, moving on to chamber news and updates and business and things. First of all, for those who didn't receive them in the mail, Oregon City Around Town magazines are here, and if you would like to take some, whether it's for home or at your next meeting to distribute, I do have a box here. I'd be happy to send them along with you. It is absolutely beautiful. This is Judge.
It's the judge's house.
Judge Tom's house. Isn't it gorgeous with the fall colors? Amazing. And lots of great stuff in there. In fact, Illuminate Oregon City is one of the key features, as well as the Willamette Falls Heritage, or excuse me, Willamette Falls, and the whole rediscovering that particular blue heron area. Let's see. Moving on. Upcoming events. I wanted to share with you a number of upcoming events that you may find of interest and of value. For those who are considering perhaps a political candidacy or helping with a campaign, there's a candidate training workshop this coming Saturday, January 11th, 8 to 12:30. It's actually being hosted by the North Clackamas County Chamber. And I do have information here if you would like it at the conclusion of our meeting. It is $30 and to go through the class. And you've got very successful current and former elected officials who will walk you through the process of what does it take to win an election, how do you win and keep your integrity, so on and so forth. Well,
sounds interesting.
Yeah, there you go.
No fantasy now.
Also, celebration of sight and sound. This event is a fundraiser for the 1190 KEX Kids Fund and the Oregon City Lions Club, and it's hosted by our own Ray Gordon, who is, does everybody know? Mm-hmm. Blues singer, fantastic. What? She's on her way to Memphis. What's she doing in Memphis?
Competition. She's gonna rock the world.
It's official. Ray Gordon will be rocking the world. So anyway, this big fundraiser is January 19th, 6 to 10 o'clock, and it is at the Pioneer Community Center. Oh, and that one is also $30 per person or $50 for two people. Clackamas Community College is offering their annual scholarship kickoff January 21st, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. And this provides information about new Clackamas Community College scholarship applications, how to write a winning essay, so on and so forth. And I bet you all of us know someone who either is, in that later high school age or maybe even an adult considering going back to school. And so this could be of real value. There is no charge to attend the scholarship kickoff, and it will be held at Clackamas Community College McLaughlin Auditorium, again, Tuesday, January 21st. The Chamber will be hosting a ribbon cutting ceremony for Wolf Strategies, located just not too far from here. We have the wrong location listed. Over here at Morrissey Group on Center Street, and that will be on Wednesday, January 22nd at 9 o'clock in the morning. And you've already heard about Illuminate Oregon City, but I will remind you, Wednesday, January 22nd, 6:30 to 7:30, and be sure to stay the whole evening and grab some dinner while you're downtown. All of these and more are available on the Oregon City website, www.oregoncity.org. And you too can post your events for free. Don't forget that. Next up, let's see. In terms of events, so what do we Oregonians think of in January? Where would we like to be?
Clearwater.
I don't know if you folks on the other side can see. We'll send you to Antarctica. The rest of us would like to go to Hawaii, perhaps. So we are actually hosting an evening in paradise. It'll be our little version of Hawaii in Oregon City on Saturday, January 25th. It's the Chamber's annual awards dinner and auction. It is not limited to Chamber members. And so we have a fantastic time. Yes, it is a fundraiser, but it is a great opportunity to mix, mingle, have fun, and then watch a whole bunch of great deserving people get some awards. Business Leader of the Year, Small Business of the Year, Community Partner, Community Enhancement Award, and then, oh, by the way, our mayor will give the Oregon City Citizen or Citizens of the Year award as well. So there's a big, big evening planned, and it's all going to be in luau, Hawaiian luau style. So come in your favorite Hawaiian garb, and we'll even give you a lei when you're there. And
Can I wear my grass skirt?
John, I hope you will. And this is being recorded. And you can register on the website. Let's see, Hawaiian attire encouraged. And our sponsors are Clackamas Community College and Portland Catering Company. And they're located actually at the Pacific Crest Grand Ballroom where this is being held. So bask in the beauty of paradise. And then, last but certainly not least, I'm going to send this around. And this is to follow up on our discussion about getting our businesses in Oregon City more connected with our neighborhood associations. And my honest to goodness, I'm sorry, apologies to Chair Watts, Mike Berman, Tom O'Brien. I did not get a hold of you. So this is the first time that those three folks have laid their eyes on this plan that we've developed for this joint effort to introduce our business folks to you and the neighborhood associations. This is what we're proposing, is that we will have, and we talked about a chamber after hours where it's a 5:30 to 7 o'clock time period. This one is going to be featuring CIC and neighborhood associations, tentatively at Pioneer Community Center, Thursday, February 20th. And essentially, thematically, we're going to ask people to join the Oregon City Chamber, and whether you like Citizen Involvement Council or Oregon City Neighborhoods, for a game of Jeopardy! And I'm sure we're all very familiar with the Jeopardy! Game. What we're thinking is we're going to start with just the simple appetizers networking. We're going to proceed with introduction of our CIC VIPs, and then introduce the map. We had talked about the desire to have the neighborhood map up, whether it's on a foam core board or down on the table, and have each of those business folks go through and identify where their business is located, so they really get more of a physical feel delineation of where they're supposed to be. And who also, hopefully at that meeting, that they should meet with. And then we will introduce the game of Jeopardy! And we have chamber staff that will create a PowerPoint Jeopardy! Board. What we're going to be encouraging are groups of mixed chamber folks and neighborhood association folks to work in groups of 3 to 5. And essentially what we need to be driving for is, we got to give something. So the top group wins a prize, and we haven't yet decided what that prize is, but I'd love to have your ideas. We're proposing Jeopardy! Categories anywhere ranging from Oregon City history to our neighborhoods, current events, our local tourism destinations, information about the chamber, our natural history, and then thinking about playing with some kind of a video question answer. And so we've got some great possibilities for our Alex Trebek, and then we have some to-dos. But I'm excited about this. I think it could be really energizing, fun, a great way to break down any barriers. And what do you think?
I think it's the night of our meeting.
Oh, no.
Have your meeting at the Pioneer Community Center. Just bring them all down there.
What time does your meeting start?
I don't know, they haven't said it yet.
You could come and then go home to the meeting after that.
Yeah.
This is early.
Could we possibly have another map made?
I think that our city staff had indicated that would
Are they gonna
be
make
pretty
another map
easy
for
to
that?
do.
Yeah,
Is that
'cause
correct?
And laminated?
Are we talking about for the
chamber thing?
For this event is what you're asking. Sorry. That's something that we might need to talk about.
Okay.
So are we wanting to talk about it right now, or because I think we talked about this before when we talked about the budget.
We did, and Tom has a comment now, but he had indicated he would like to help with planning for this business neighborhood coming together, and myself, I would like help with that. So I think we should do it in a separate meeting. Tom, do you want to say anything?
The one suggestion I have, thank you, Amber, I really like what you've put together. There's one little glitch or tweak. It's my assumption, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think that probably at least one or two of the chamber members also live in the city at some point. Maybe on the map, we could have a certain color pin for their business and a separate colored pin for where they live. Because I know in our neighborhood, we don't have much in the way of business. What we do have is maybe a couple of home businesses. Whether they're chamber members or not, I don't know. But I also know that there are people who work in businesses or own businesses who live in our neighborhood. And I'd like to see them get to know us and tell us a little bit more at our meetings about their businesses.
Well, Michael's the perfect example of that, being a Kenema resident, but a Two Rivers.
You live in the city.
Yep. He's a twofer.
Resident.
Yep. No, very good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we work with you after and develop these ideas?
Absolutely. I would like to walk away from here knowing if this is close enough that we like it to keep working on it.
Walk away.
Any other suggestions? Any other suggestions or comments?
That means that you folks are going to be coming.
Oh, Brian?
Yeah, I just have to comment that I'll be chairing the meeting of the Clackamas River Basin Council at 6, so I won't be able to make that day. But it looks like a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, you have our support, Amber.
Can we have a representative, perhaps Kim from Twin Rivers? Because I think Twin Rivers is
I'll let you know.
one of the heavily impacted.
Yeah. She'll look into it. So.
Okay. Next is the approval of our minutes from the previous meeting. Did everyone take a look at them, and can we discuss them now, or I'll entertain a motion? Pardon me?
There's one typo. I wasn't at the meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead, Joyce. Point it out for us so we can make the correction.
It's under number 7, new business. I don't think you were using a poll.
You don't think?
Oh.
Put another L in there would be nice. Oh. Okay.
I thought she'd been beating us.
Yeah. Taking those papers out, but,
Anyone else have any comments about the minutes?
Move approval as amended.
Is there a second? Okay. Damon moved and Tom seconded to approve as corrected with that one spelling change. All those in favor?
Wait. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll go for the roll call. Michael?
Aye.
Paul?
Yes.
Amy?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Joyce?
Aye.
Faith?
Aye.
Damon?
Aye.
Alice?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Barbara?
Yes.
Diane? Oh, she's not here tonight, sorry. And Eileen. Okay, so Eileen?
Here, I mean.
Yes. Okay. And Ingra?
Yes.
Marianne?
Yes.
Todd?
Aye.
Brian?
He stepped
He's
out.
just stepped out, yes. And Kim?
Yes.
Kim? Yes. Did you
Yes.
say yes? Okay. And it passes.
Okay, thank you. I had an item under unfinished business, but due to the lateness of the hour, it's nothing that can't be tabled. Does anyone else have any other unfinished business tonight that I didn't get on the agenda? If not, we'll move into new business, and our discussion item there is our budget update, and that would be Katie.
I'm going to see if I can present from this laptop here. There we go. Okay, so I was just going to pull up the spreadsheet that we currently have running for the different neighborhood associations and show you. Oh, yes, sorry.
Much better.
There you go. Sorry about
there's
that.
even colors.
Thank you.
And show you where you're at with that. And if I know it doesn't all technically fit on the screen, but if you scroll over, whoops, wrong button. You can see the total. The running total is over here. So we're at about, and remember that this is, I just have this for 1 year, even though it's a biennial budget. So the $25,500 is for July 1st of 2013 through June 30th of 2014. So this is what that totals for. And you can see where you're at. Is there any questions?
2 questions after.
Go.
Will you be emailing this to us?
I can definitely
Okay.
email it out to you.
And then under the other cushion, can you explain what those two?
I explained them at the last meeting, but I can again explain them in the email when I send that out to
Okay.
you. It was something that
the
one
5
of the
cent?
one of them was the tabs.
Okay.
And actually both of them might have been the tabs,
were
but I
both
have to
tabs.
look.
okay.
I think it was because it was 2 separate months worth of. It just looks. But I talked about that at
Okay.
the last
Uh,
meeting.
thank you for
But,
reminding me.
Yep. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, my comment is one that I've made to the city commission, but I should make it here as well. When I look at that 25,500 for an annual basis for the entire city, knowing that we have over 32,000 residents in this city, that number seems to me to be a little bit inadequate. I think if we are going to follow our goal 4 and try to communicate better with our citizenry, we need to put a little bit more emphasis behind our neighborhood association budgets. Less than $1 per person when you're having 4 meeting notices a year. I don't know what postage is in your land, but in my land, it has gone up. Printing has gone up this year. Everything else has gone up. And I don't think $1 per person per year or less than, probably it's, let's see, about.
Actually, $1.72, and it's per household, not per
household.
citizen. So
Right.
even though there's 32,000 citizens in Oregon City, there's only
so even if it's
$14,510 households.
Okay, so even if it's $1.72 per household,
Yes.
what does a mailing cost, a singular mailing of a half sheet
Okay. Sorry,
going out?
we went over this last time as well.
Considering the increase in printing fees and the expected increase in postal. And we have to live with this budget through June of 2015?
14.
15.
Well, yeah, it's a biennial.
It's a biennial.
2 year.
This budget's set till 2015, June 30.
Okay, and we went over this at the October meeting as well. And it depends on what you are choosing to mail out.
Very least expensive method that
So
most
the
of us
very
have
least
had to
expensive,
go to.
the very least expensive method would be a 1/4 size postcard,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be
30 cents.
yeah, 30 cents.
30 cents back in October. Since then, the printing rates have gone up and the postage rates are about to go up.
Printing rates and the postage rates for us have not gone up.
Okay. I thought you told us.
No, the tabs. When you do a newsletter,
Okay.
which is only one neighborhood association at this point, South End, that I know of.
So it's-
Every once in a while, Park Place
That's
throws
fine,
one
we
out
can
there.
live with these numbers,
Okay.
but let's take this number as an example. We use I'm not sure what you call it. Are you calling that a half postcard?
Yeah, you're a half.
Okay, so we're 34 cents per household in our neighborhood. We eat up and go through that $1.72 real quick.
Mm-hmm.
We have nothing left for stationery or other needs that we might have within our homeowners association. A lot of the expenses that we're now incurring are coming out of either Kathy's pocket or my own pocket. We're not billing back to the city for the expenditures that we make for things such as copies of the application form to serve on commissions and those kinds of things.
Those the city can provide for you.
Okay, it's easy for us to run them off the city website and have them in time for our meeting, rather than you paying postage to send them to us.
I could, I mean.
And I'm willing to absorb that expense.
Yeah.
I'm
There's-
just asking that the city consider a realistic number to support their goal for?
Yeah, this is definitely something you can bring to the city commission or the budget committee, preferably to the city commission prior to the budget committee meeting. And like you mentioned, this is a biennial budget, so this one is set, although adjustments can be made, I believe, by the city commission if they see fit or whatever. But again, if you take something from Paul and give it to Sam, you know, you're not, just because you want more money doesn't mean we have more money to give. So if you want more money, that money's coming from somewhere. So you have to remember that as well. And a lot of things are going to online. That's why they have the online applications for the boards and committees. And the library offers online services for free. You can use the internet over there for free to apply for a board or committee position. And then I know a lot of the neighborhood associations are starting to use all of the online services like Facebook, the Nextdoor, even, you know, walking their neighborhood door to door, just verbal communication as to when their meetings are, along with, yes, doing the postcards. And I know that this is a very small budget for a very big city, and or medium-sized city, a city of our size, I should say, to get the mailings out. But the purpose, I believe, what the purpose of the budget was for the notification, the mailing to the citizens, and I feel like we're accomplishing that within our budget.
I might point out to our fellow CIC members that when I presented it to the City Commission, the response that was given to me by the Commission was that the reason we don't have more money in our budget is that we are not spending the money that we currently have in the budget. Therefore, they're not going to increase it, evidently, unless we use every penny that's currently in this year's budget. So I would suggest to you that if you're holding back on sending mailings to your citizens and involving them, such as the Commission would like, maybe you need to be a little bit more proactive in that regard. In our particular case, we have a lot of elderly citizens in our neighborhood, and they don't tend to use the computers very much.
Yeah, and one suggestion I might make is that, for example, I know that Bob LaSalle came to me at the very beginning, sorry to use you as an example, Bob, but at the very beginning of this fiscal year, and sat down with me and looked over the budget, their particular neighborhood association budget, the costs for each one of the different mailings, and has planned out, oh, we can do a newsletter here, we can do a fourth of a size postcard here, we can do a half size postcard here, whatever it is they decided to complete, you know, to fit within his budget.
Our neighborhood was meeting 5 times a year, but because we could not afford to send out a notice of the meetings, we had to cut back to 4 times a year.
Sorry.
So, you know, it is
I know that must have been before my
time. It's an issue that
time.
hurts in my mind, that we can't communicate with our citizens the way we would like to be able to do so.
Damon?
Ditto. The simple math is that McLaughlin meets 6 times a year. 6 times 30 cents is $1.80. We're already 8 cents in the hole. And that's for the cheapest way. We used to send out 4-page newsletters, or at least, you know, folded with news and information for the people who couldn't get there. It was a repeat of the last meeting and highlights of the coming meeting. And we're down to a quarter-size postcard. I haven't seen anything that indicates that's a specific hit to attendance, but we used to get emails from people who wanted to know more information. You know, it led to more communication from that. The larger size mailings, we couldn't even do 3 a year based on the prices. So McLaughlin, as one of the more active ones, is already starting out in the hole by 8 cents. So there, I've said it.
And that's a good reminder too. Is you did mention email, and I keep an email listserv for each one of the neighborhood associations, and you can go on our website at under the neighborhood association link, and you can request to be added to that email listserv. And I try to do my very best to send out reminders to all of those on your listserv as to when your meetings are coming up. I even include a copy of your postcard that you sent out or your newsletter, whatever you choose. You can also utilize our city website more, your individual neighborhood association pages. If you wanted to send out an email to your listserv and say, we're going to put a newsletter on our website page, you could view it there versus like mailing it out. Or, that doesn't exactly help Tom, because he mentioned that a lot of his are elderly and don't use the computer. But if they go to the library and use it, maybe, or...
You're afraid of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, and the other thing I think Tom and I both have tried to do is get the school involved in putting the...
Oh, that's a good idea.
Putting it in their newsletter.
We've had good cooperation both from Ginger and now from Lisa to
So-
get
Great
it into
idea.
the school publications,
Okay,
letting the parents at least know of the meeting.
We're 100 years late in Kanema, I think. It's a tough one.
School have been gone. That's right, you can get it through ours.
Is there any other questions? And I will email this out to you tomorrow.
One other question I'd like to see you bring forward at another meeting, Katie, is if you could give us some indication of which neighborhoods have people on your email list, because we don't know who you're emailing to.
I'm
They're
sorry, I
on the
don't
list.
understand your question.
You said you have a number of people on the listserv from the various neighborhoods,
Yeah.
and you send information out to them.
Uh-huh.
We don't know whom you're sending that to.
Right.
Is there some way we can determine that?
Sure. I thought it was you that I had sent your copy of it. Maybe it was Todd. Oh, okay. If you just send me an email that you would like to request,
Maybe at a future meeting, our next meeting or something? you
I don't know that I feel comfortable presenting it at a meeting, but if you want to email me directly and as like a public records request, requesting a copy of the emails that I have on your listserv, I would be more than happy to get that to you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Next, we have committee reports, and I don't think any were submitted. I didn't have any attached to mine.
Move adjournment.
What? I did have a comment, though, about our committees and the chairs when they represent themselves as chairs of our committees. And this goes for the executive committee as well. When we're talking to people in the community, we need to be cognizant of the fact that unless this body instructs you to speak on their behalf, you cannot. And so as a citizen, you can say whatever you like, but as a chair of a committee, you don't represent us unless we tell you that you do. So just keep that in mind.
Chair?
Yes.
I'd like, as handling one of the committees, I would like in that regard to have, to pull together those that are interested in reviewing the South End Road transportation statistics. I just recently got a whole lot of information from the city about trip counts and assumptions and methods that they're using, so as that we can have an agreed to understanding that would be part of what the CIC is trying to present, and so that it's not an individual that's making a presentation on it, but it's that of the CIC. And so I would hope that we could discuss this more, have a committee come together where we can really go through it. I spent some time today with Tom going through this information for the South End Road, and we could see some understandings and some of the methods that they're using that just don't sync up. They don't. They physically do not make sense with understandings we have. In fact, because of Todd, and just this is basically the Bible that the city uses for transportation planning, and the county uses it, and the state uses it, and Metro uses it when they want to. But what it points out is that when we need to be able to be more proactive, and to do this we need to be able to make sure we have some agreement so that when, if some of this information doesn't make sense, do we just sit back and not make any statement? Because if the level of service or the quality of life in people trying to commute through the South End Road area, if we have 25,000 daily trips going through it every day, and over what we currently now have,
So, Paul,
the
you're
quality
asking
of
for...
life is going to be bad.
You're asking for a committee?
I'm asking
We have a
for,
committee.
I'm asking for people who are really involved or want to be involved, that we sit through and go through it and then come up with a consensus and then have an agreed to position coming out of the CIC.
Amy?
Just to clarify, the committees meet, you discuss, and then you recommend to the CIC. Just to make sure you follow the bylaws, and this goes to all committees. Just because your committee agreed and that's what you want to do, you still have to present it to the CIC and have it approved here before you send it out to anyone else representing the CIC. And so if you're requesting information for your committee, you need to make sure you're requesting it, that you're not specifying that you're doing it on behalf of the CIC. You have to be very careful in how you're wording it, because you're gathering it for the committee to bring to the CIC.
As an example, this information was just published today, and the Planning Commission is going to be meeting on it in 7 days.
Well, that's why you're the chair of a committee, and if you need to talk with Katie or go back and figure out who's on that committee, we've various times have re-upped who's on the transportation committee. Then you can call a meeting.
But this information doesn't give us the chance then to bring it back before the CIC, before the potential final vote, or maybe we turn around and say that we want to have a delay until we can of the Planning Commission, so there isn't a final vote on it until we have a chance to bring all of this information back before the CIC, so we can all agree, come up with some type of an agreement. But the way it is, this information was made available today, 7 days before the Planning Commission meeting. This precludes us getting a formal approval of the whole body, okay, before a critical vote to finalize a concept plan that could have major ramifications upon the whole city.
Except that I would say that it's not a critical vote. There will be another meeting of the CIC, at least another meeting of the CIC, prior to the City Council ratifying the decision. It'll be, the Planning Commission is going to see it for the first time on the 15th, possibly the second time on the 28th. It might be later than that, and which means there would definitely be a CIC meeting before that. So, in any event, there's at least one regular meeting before there's any final decision. But irrespective of that, should something pop up fast, like a land use issue, which can easily happen in the time between two things, there's an executive committee. Your committee meets, you say to the executive committee, we're not having a regular session, this is our proposed recommendation, do you have any issues with it? And then they, I believe, are empowered to say go forth as the CIC. I mean, I wouldn't expect, there are land use things that are going to pop up and disappear in 14 days. And, you're the group, they're the group that can act in our interim. And it's the way it is with neighborhoods.
Have you met with the TAC?
I have, they just got the information, TAC just got it today. I know I went up and asked for it and graciously was given, printed it out, Pete Walters printed it out for me so that I could have it before it went onto the web this afternoon.
And Bob, as our representative, and John as being a member of that, will you be meeting again? Can you give any time to this issue with Paul?
Yeah, we've had the South End concept plan on our agenda at least one time. Paul, you evidently couldn't make it to that meeting, but the South End Concept Plan has come up on our agenda before, and
When is the next TAC meeting going to be discussing it?
well, the
Same night as the Chiefs.
yeah, Tuesday night, the third Tuesday of the month. And yeah, we can add that to the agenda.
I just see them as the experts in this regard.
Well, can I ask, do we with regard to what Damon said about the executive session, do we concur on that? I don't have the bylaws in front of me.
I was reading through them to see if that.
I saw you.
I mean, yeah.
I don't believe it's in there, but we can always call a special meeting if that's necessary. If there is something that is very, very, very important, and it's necessary to have a vote before a certain time, I believe the chair can call a special meeting.
Or 7 members.
Or 7, yeah.
What say you, Bob LaSalle? Bylaw committee, is that what?
Oh.
Is that?
I can pull them up right now on the website.
I don't know what the question is.
If the executive team, the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary can come together with, let's say, Paul on the South End Concept plan thing, discuss a topic or an issue, and approve, have a vote and approve him moving forward on behalf of the CIC.
There's nothing in the bylaws that
I don't believe there
speaks
is
to that
either.
at all.
But did you have another comment?
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move that the executive committee be empowered to act on behalf of the CIC in matters that come before a regular CIC meeting, and that their decisions then be brought to the next available CIC meeting for ratification.
I would second that.
Are you proposing this as a change to the bylaws?
No, I'm proposing it as that this group empower you to act.
But it sounded like forevermore until the end of time, which would really be a bylaws change.
Well, technically, we do a vote by call of names, and I don't believe you put that in the bylaws. That was by vote. We voted to have it be a call of names instead of doing the aye, nay thing, and I don't know that you put that in the bylaws either.
We don't want to get into.
Right, you're right, because then it gets sticky.
We have to, if we change the bylaws, there's specific things that we said have to happen in order to.
And I'm not changing the bylaws.
So
I'm just
making sure.
empowering
That's why I
you.
was just questioning.
But don't I understand that this is going before the planning commission and then it goes before this city commission?
But in the
So
way-
you still have time we have another CIC meeting before then.
No, what the Planning Commission is really the initial critical body that and it's of the 3 bodies, i.e. The Planning Commission, the Urban Renewal Commission, and
City Commission.
City Commission, are these 3, we'll say, government bodies that are of another level. So this is really very critical. That a lot of the assumptions from what we could read by taking what the DKS is now saying, dramatically understate impacts on trip counts. And so we're trying to get through it to understand, is that true? And this is where if we can get more eyeballs on it, looking at it, understanding what it is, it shouldn't be something that one person makes an assumption on. And it should be that we can all kind of digest it and say, okay, what is it really telling us? And is this consistent with us, our position of trying to maintain the quality of life, not degrade people's values of their house? So if I lived out in South End Road or of that area, and I have to fight through it, all of a sudden the traffic gets immensely worse and worse and worse, and we don't have the funds to fix it. And then all of a sudden people say, I don't want to live out there, and the house values start dropping. And we degrade their quality of life, their investments.
Okay,
that's what the possibility
I'd like to make
is.
a point of order, please.
Yeah, we have a motion.
Let's get
on
to the
floor.
discussion instead of this rambling on and on.
We have a motion on the floor, and I would like to try to read it back to make sure I have it correct, because it was quite lengthy and we kind of moved on really quickly. So I have a motion to or move to allow the executive committee, allow the executive committee to be empowered to act on behalf of the CIC regarding issues that come up between meetings and reports back at the next CIC meeting. Is that what you were saying or no?
All I said to have their decision ratified by the full at the
Okay, there we
next
go.
meeting.
Okay.
So it could conceivably be overturned by the full group, but odds are it won't.
Decision.
That's the way a lot of steering committees, general
Next.
neighborhoods
Okay.
work.
Okay, so let me read it one more time. Sorry to just allow the executive team committee to be empowered to act on behalf of the CIC regarding issues that come up between meetings and have their decision ratified at the next CIC meeting.
Yes.
Is there any second to that?
There was Bob LaSalle.
Oh, I apologize. I did not get that.
It is a true motion. We would normally have discussion before we voted.
Before it
Although we
goes
didn't
to a
do
vote, can I ask, Damon, in your mind, since it's your motion, and I'm not for or
Can't
against
read
it
it?
at this point, what's the worst that could happen?
The worst that could happen is that CIC does not make is unable to make comment on a land use decision or, well, potential transportation or whatever subcommittee might be trying to act on something, because there isn't an official statement. So the individual, like Paul, would have to go up as a citizen and comment rather than speaking on behalf.
Okay. Would there be any imminent danger with us as a CIC?
At this point in time, I'm not aware of any issue that couldn't wait for another meeting.
Okay.
But having been, involved in neighborhoods, I know that issues pop up very quickly and then disappear. Like, the city's having a meeting about, I can't think of the specific, or the city would like people to come to an emergency response training thing. They need ratification for the city to pick up the cost because it's in Beaverton. But if they don't have, they can't just have a citizen go, they need a representative to go. So they need an appointed representative. Something like that could happen. And that would be a quick response sort of thing.
Amy.
It could also be a solution in
Well, my comment went to a different part, so I think I
Okay,
better,
you want to come back to you?
after you discuss the motion, then.
Okay.
yeah.
John, did you have a comment about the motion?
Well, I guess I don't want to be careful how I say this, but I think this issue can become a real problem if you're using referring to a body of people that you represent when you really don't represent them. And that happens pretty regularly. So it doesn't matter if it's the CIC or a land use committee or, when you routinely express yourself in front of the city commission or the planning commission as representing a body of people who you really don't represent, that's flawed. And it happens too often. So, and what I'm not sure about is, are we saying in this motion that if any one of you, Damon, you decide that you've got an opinion on South End Road, you can go ahead and present that at a planning commission meeting without having a conversation with the
No, what I'm saying
executive
is I can't have that conversation as a CIC member unless I get the approval of the executive committee.
Which is the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary.
Or if a general meeting's available through the general membership.
Well, I mean, to me
It's a
that
check.
makes sense because there's so many times that the timing doesn't work. So I think that's a solution. I just think it's important that approval somehow be kind of documented. I mean, even if it was an email from this chair that said to the chair of the planning director or whatever, we've authorized Paul, or we've authorized Damon, or we've authorized somebody to speak on our behalf. That would be helpful too, because I don't know.
And I know we've on the planning commission had that where somebody's come up and said, I'm the neighborhood representative, and like, your neighborhood hasn't met in like 6 months. Exactly how did you become a representative?
Right.
So, and sometimes they say, well, here's a notice of a minutes, or here's an email that shows it was directed to the 4 members, and they. So there's a lot of ways to verify it. I would think a simple email saying we all vote aye or whatever would be something they could present as part of their testimony.
Damon, I just want to continue as part of my last question. I guess the question about the danger, like, I'm going to just say it right now. I really like us 3. We worked well together. We did great. In the future,
right,
I might not like anybody that's sitting up here personally. And so if it was a turnabout, I always feel like the turnabout situation. I want to make sure that if we make a decision like this, that there wouldn't be a danger if I hated everybody up here. I don't really hate anybody, but if I didn't agree with their thoughts.
You want proper transparency and know who's hiring the attorney.
But you know what I'm saying.
Would you feel more comfortable if I said for 2014 on the motion, so that it has a sunset? There will be a new election cycle. It can be renewed. Somebody else can say it. There, we can make it an amendment in the interim.
I don't want to vote for something that's an advantage to us currently that somebody else may not like me very much.
No, that's fine. I mean, I have no problem with making that amendment to say for 2014, if Bob's amenable to.
You say that for the record.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, more discussion. Tom, please.
I guess if I were on the executive committee, I would not feel comfortable if one of the chairs of one of the teams came to us and asked us to make a decision without getting the input of the full CIC. I would not want to be placed in that position were I in your shoes. And therefore, I don't think it's something that even for 2014, when everybody gets along, is something that we want to set a precedent with and cause you to have to study something. Katie made a suggestion earlier that an emergency meeting could be called. We all have had occasions when we were not able to attend something, be it the Transportation Advisory Committee meetings because of other commitments. I would love to take some of these concerns that we have to that committee, and that's a proper place to take them. But it's a matter of, I've got to set priorities. Where can I spend that 3 hours of time on a given night? So I just don't feel comfortable with the way the discussion has been proposed or the motion has been proposed.
Thank you.
Well, and if I can, I would agree with you, but trying to have an emergency meeting of 24 people where that we may or may not even have a space available makes it problematical. If this was a 5 or 10 man committee, I'd say we just have a meeting.
But if an email were sent out stating the emergency and stating the topic and what the issues are, we could meet at the Pioneer Center or at the library or at the movie theater or I don't care where, the lobby somewheres, and say yay, nay, and an official meeting has taken place.
But it hasn't been noticed. It may not. There may not be time to notice it.
If it's been noticed by email,
there may not be time to notice it, and it has to be posted in the 5 public places on top of.
We would look at the public meetings law, but I believe it states within a reasonable amount of time that it needs to be posted within a reasonable amount of time prior to the meeting.
I mean, otherwise, I'd just say just do an email meeting, but then it's not a public meeting, so that doesn't.
No.
But the flip side of it is, we're not a public notice body because we're not a decision-making body. So therefore, I don't know that we're necessarily required to follow the public notices.
We are. It is in our bylaws that we follow public meetings, and this.
It's in our bylaws, but it's not a requirement. It's not a legal requirement.
Let's not get into that. Let's keep moving with.
Okay,
So,
yeah, Amy,
anyway.
and then Brian, Joyce, and then Tom Guile has a comment.
I think we're spending a lot of time on something that has never happened. I mean, I can't say for forever, but since I've been on here, we've never had something come up. We keep saying over and over about our body of CIC that we don't make the decisions. We're just passing along information. So I'm trying to find an instance that I would even, that anything would come up where we would need to vote to give our approval as the CIC on something. If someone wants to go to the city commission or the TAC, they can state their own opinion. They can say, I'm a member of the CIC, however, this is my opinion. And they can send an email that says, just from you, as use your chair or whatever your position in the neighborhood is, or you can say, I'm a member of the CIC and I'm pulling this for the transportation committee or whatever. But I just think we're having a lot of discussion on something that I don't think has ever come, and I just don't see the relevance.
The value to the speaker is that representatives of organized committees get more time to speak than a citizen does.
Right.
So
but
I'm just saying that's the value to that person to get that endorsement. That's all I'm saying.
But as the CIC, do we really get involved? I mean, are we really going to step in and join a cause of a I don't know.
Brian, please.
Okay. I just wanted to put out our experience. We, being in the downtown core area, we get more business-related emails from the city asking for what our input is. And we only meet every 3 months, and these things will have maybe 20 days at the most, So we have the executive committee, the chair, vice chair, and one other member to review these things when we have to reply before the next meeting, which is frequent, So we didn't write that in the bylaws. I just created it as chair at this point in time. We may go back and amend the bylaws to reflect that, but we have that requirement. We're asked all the time by the city to comment on things. Our next meeting, we're going to have one presentation before the fact, so that we actually are presenting it to the whole body. So that's where we're at, and so it's very similar to what's being proposed tonight. So, but again, we meet every month, which is another story.
Joyce?
Going along with what Brian said, there's a lot of land use issues that come across our computer, and a lot of them are minor little things. They want to change, the size of a sign. They want to change little things, and those little things do require kind of responses within the next 2 weeks. So there might be, where a group has to get together, we just have a short discussion and say, our recommendation, if somebody wants to put up a fence that's 8 feet tall and the city says it needs, can't be more than 6 feet tall, and, what kind of thing we're going to do about this. So we do make recommendations all the time. The Hillendale Neighborhood Association does respond to those requests frequently, and it is the steering committee that responds to those. But I see here, though, at the CIC, we're talking about the bigger issues. When Paul's bringing up about the South End concept plan or any of the big concept plans, which go through a lengthy public process, there is always time for us as a group to respond. And those little minor things like that,
Well, CIC doesn't get them because
the CIC isn't going to be jumping into those waters for every single time somebody wants to paint the outside of their building. And I don't think it's necessary to give our 3 wonderful people here the power to make those decisions for us without informing us. And if it's a big enough decision that needs to be brought to the CIC, an emergency meeting could be called.
Tom, you want to step up?
Sure. great discussion tonight. I stuck around and saw the end of the football game. Several years ago when I was chair, and I know our officers talked about doing something, because you can't always make a change like you were saying, Damon, to the bylaws. So we started thinking maybe we should also have a policy manual. This is our policy on Saturday market. This is our policy on something like this that comes up. And you might consider developing something like that as you go along, because the next generation of officers may need to follow what policy did they put in place. It didn't belong in the bylaws. I think you added the date timing, because I was asking myself back here, well, how long is that good for? Is it good till the end of time, or is it just for this board? And I think you were discussing 2014. Right. But anytime that the three officers need to get together to talk about something, you can always notify the rest of the group saying, we're going to get together with a board, and you're all invited to attend that meeting. Even as we were joking, Taco Bell or wherever you have it, you could say we are going to have a discussion, because the timing is of essence to this. Let's say it's for the Planning Commission or something like that. All I'm trying to say is you need to put a time on it, if it's just for this board or if it's just for this year, and I think you did that. But you might start thinking about developing some policy ones where you, if you do need to call an emergency meeting, contacting everyone, we're going to do this about the Saturday garden markets or whatever you want to do. But that might help you in the long run. We never got to it.
Thank you. All right, Paul, can you keep it short and sweet?
Quickly, I would agree with this, and I think this is an excellent move. Just this information, Pete Walters, as an example in this particular case, said that he was kind of sorry that the information was never made available. We requested it of him for probably 45 days. And finally, today, it gets published. And so after a great deal of time trying to get the information, it's now finally coming out. And this is important. These rulings on a concept plan have major ramifications on the city. And if we can't get it out in the open and discuss it, I think it's. I think we also need to have people to understand that it is the CIC that's making it, not one individual, and that's important.
Okay, Katie.
He kind of answered my question there at the end. Is what, what's the harm in, like Amy was saying, what's the harm in you notifying all of this to us that this information just came out, possibly even emailing it to us, and then telling us that you're going to attend this meeting as a citizen, and that any other CIC members are welcome to attend it as a citizen, and you encourage them to come forward and talk about it. And if you wanted to meet ahead of time to discuss items, that maybe you're going to bring up one item and someone else is going to bring up another item or something like that. But again, that you're bringing it up as citizens, not as as the CIC.
But like Damon made a comment that it's 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes, and it's more of a citizen comment than it is the complete the CIC, and in the long haul, I think it's important that that issues of such major ramifications as a concept plan have a greater review, and this one, I would even prefer us asking the Planning Commission to delay a vote on it until we can fully digest this information, because to get it like tonight, having really one moment to spend an hour and a half with Tom to try to go through it and try to sort it out is just too short. And it's not like that we didn't ask for it for a very, very long time. So now we have this vote coming up, and I just feel it's we need more eyeballs looking at it. We need a lot more thinking about it, and that's the reason for the outreach.
Amy?
Call the question.
What? Oh, he called the question.
She's ahead of you. I just called her discussion.
I think that we have an item or a motion that really is, you're trying to be generic, but we have a specific issue, and you're pulling it under land use, but isn't it really transportation? And hasn't this been going on for a long time, and it shouldn't have been an emergency? So I could tell you right now, if you brought it up and it came to the executive, I would say no. You don't have my permission, or that I don't feel represents the CIC, because I don't think this is a last minute thing. This is something that should have been brought up a long time ago. These aren't new numbers. I mean, you're just getting some
No, they are new numbers, actually.
They are brand new.
Not all of the stuff that you have is new.
The South End Concept Plan, this CAT, or Citizen Action Advisory Team, did not have access to this information.
Okay, but I'm just saying, is it a transportation issue or a land use issue?
It is both, a combination of both.
It's a hybrid of both, I guess.
Because the land use will determine the
But I'm also
transportation
comfortable with just, as a private citizen, going before the Planning Commission, and I think I could put my remarks probably in 3 minutes easily as to why they might want to further consider the points.
Call the question.
Okay.
Okay.
That ends the discussion. We vote.
We're going to vote. So, Michael.
Can I say what the question is?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, the motion. The motion.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Do you want me to read the motion again? Okay. Sorry about that. Motion to allow the executive committee, and then just to clarify, which includes the chair, vice chair, and secretary.
That is it.
Okay. Be empowered to act on behalf of the CIC regarding issues that come up between meetings, and their decision be ratified at the next CIC meeting only for the year 2014.
Yes. Or for the year.
Or for the year 2014.
Abstain.
Paul.
Yes.
Amy.
Nay.
Kathy. Oh, sorry. Okay. Tom.
No.
Joyce.
No.
Faith.
No.
Damon.
No. I'm just trying to resolve the issue.
Alice. You could have just withdrew your. Okay.
I need everybody else.
Alice Watts.
Abstain.
Bob LaSalle.
Yes.
Barbara Rankin.
Abstain.
Eileen Olson.
No.
Ingra Rickenbach.
Yes.
And Marianne
Had to
left.
go, yeah.
Okay. And Todd.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
And Kim.
Abstain.
It's going to be even.
We need those votes that left the room.
It's actually going to be. It's going to be a no. It did not pass, and I will read the votes in just a second. There were 5 ayes, 6 nays, and 4 abstentions. So it's all across the board. So it did not pass.
All right. Oh, well.
Yeah, her vote would have counted.
Does it
Maybe.
count when people leave a
Hey,
meeting?
do we want to? Huh?
Does it count in a meeting when people leave?
They don't get a vote.
Yeah, and then it's the
We
majority.
still have.
Yeah.
That's why you stay at the end, I guess.
Yeah.
A quorum. We still have
Yeah.
a quorum, so yeah, if they leave it.
Okay, so are we moving on with the agenda?
Okay,
or?
you know, yes, we are moving on, but I want to say to Paul that I think he needs to go again to the TAC people,
Yeah.
the TAC committee.
And get some numbers together for the next CIC meeting.
Yes.
To have us, at
And-
that
and
point, you'll
bring
have
it-
an analysis.
Yeah, and also, if you could prepare a written report with some of the numbers that you think are significant, so that we can see it on a report before we meet again.
And
Like
if you
a
could
committee
provide it
report.
with just numbers, not a lot of commentary that we could take to our neighborhood meetings. Some of us have those coming up towards the end of the month. That would be nice.
Okay.
And maybe you could get with Bob as the transportation, even if this is a combined land use and transportation issue, as the chairs of those groups, maybe you could work together.
I think it's great.
Okay, everybody, it's 10 to 10. And on our round table, instead of doing our traditional round table, I would like you to indicate if you have anything significant to share. And if you do not, Katie has something, Joyce has something, Amy has something, Michael. Okay, we'll start with you, Joyce, and we'll come around.
I just want to reiterate what the mayor said today about if you really want to get involved, sign up for one of those committees. I am on the Parks and Recreation Committee, and there's a lot of great things going on. We're looking at places to put dog parks, so we may be coming to your neighborhoods to talk to you about that if you're one of the chosen neighborhoods. And also what the high school construction class is doing, projects they are currently doing, and future projects they may want to be doing. And the Hillendale Neighborhood Association is having their quarterly meeting tomorrow night, 7 p.m. at Living Hope Church.
Okay, thank you. I think Katie was next. Is that right? Ladies on that side, Katie's
Are you guys
next.
good? Or okay. So an informational meeting on the Neighborhood Watch program is going to be Thursday, January 23rd. Our Chris Wadsworth, who used to be the CIC liaison, has become the police community outreach, and I'm sure she comes to your guys' meetings, community outreach coordinator, and she is having this informational meeting. And again, it's going to be Thursday, January 23rd, and that's from 7 to 8 p.m. at the Oregon City Police Department. And if you have any questions, you can email or call her, and it also says to RSVP if you will be attending. Her telephone number is 503-496-1581, and her email address is cwadsworth@orcity.org. And then I just want to send a quick reminder out to you guys that I haven't been receiving approved minutes from a lot of the neighborhood associations, if any. So once you meet and you approve minutes, please email those to me so I can get them up on your websites, and I have them for city records. Also, if you have any changes to your meeting dates or your officers, please let me know as soon as possible. Thank you.
Amy, you were next.
Well, I'm sad to hear that the Neighborhood Watch program is meeting that night, because that's our Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association meeting night. So for anyone watching, please come to our meeting, and then I'll get the information. I'll get everything from Chris and get it to you. I have a good rapport with Chris. I'll get that to you. Please come to our meeting. We have an important land use issue coming up regarding subdivision and possible zone changing on Myers Road. So that's something I hope will draw people's attention. Again, we meet at the Meadows Courtyard, which is behind Biscuits. Thursday, January 23rd. That's the Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association at 7 p.m.
Michael, Kanima.
Just that I'm happy. Something. I'm glad we have their speed control coming in. The OCPD chooses our street that tees into 99, and watch your speed in there, man, because there'll be 2 patrol cars, and one will take off to Canby and get somebody, and then the next one pulls up. And pretty much by the time he's done, another one will pull up, and they're doing a really good job. It's fun to watch when you're barbecuing, and in the dark, and they don't see you. But I have to say that on the converse, and this is Two Rivers. The reciprocal, as much as good that they do. I've been watching on Main Street, and this affects Two Rivers neighborhood businesses because it makes it look like we're in a ghetto. We have a very strong police force coming down at nighttime. It detracts if somebody wants to come down and maybe have a burger or a beer or a burger and a pop. They may choose to go somewhere else because when they see 2 to 3 to 4 police cars circling the blocks, and one of them's the Gladstone police patrol car. I spoke to somebody and said, Gladstone's not patrolling, but they are. I'm not sure. I've got pictures and a video, and a Clackamas County Sheriff, when it's that heavy on Main Street, you can expect somebody to probably choose somewhere else to get a pizza, or to get some Vietnamese food, or to get a burger, or to get Mexican food.
It'd incline me to go. I'm not,
Well,
I'm not
yeah, and I guess the answer that usually the and I'm on their side, man, but when it affects business, I start to lose some of that affection. And so what happens is you may choose to go somewhere else because it looks like there might be something really bad happening and that you're in a bad neighborhood. And I'm not sure what's going on down there, but I want to give kudos to their speed patrols in Kanema, and I'm just questioning. I'm not necessarily criticizing why I see a Clackamas County Sheriff and a regular Gladstone police car and a SEV police car and then 3 to 4 other police cars circling on Main Street. It seems heavy-handed, and it's not it doesn't seem inviting. It doesn't look like Lake Oswego or another nice neighborhood. It looks like it's Compton. Sorry, Compton.
Todd, is that something you could bring up at the next Chiefs Advisory meeting? Just
Sure.
ask the police why they're targeting Main Street. Okay. Brian?
Yeah, I just wanted to say briefly, our next meeting just happens to be the evening of the illumination of the elevator, so we were meeting a block away, so so we're actually attending both, and we'll be there as a group. So
Excellent.
okay.
Anyone else on this side have any? Tom?
Did you invite West Lynn to the illumination?
Well,
since
the
it's
question
best
is,
seen from that side of the river.
Did Mr. Stone invite them? I don't know.
Yes, I wanted to announce that a week from this coming Thursday, the 16th of January, our neighborhood association, Hazel Grove Westling Farms, will be meeting. We have 2 issues on our agenda that are sure to be well-discussed topics. One is a land use action for a rezoning effort immediately adjacent to and south of Hazel Creek Farms, which is one of the newer subdivisions where people have invested a lot of money. The other is a cellular tower application for conditional use permit adjacent to McLaughlin Grade School, of all places. Yes, cell phone coverage is terrible in that area, but that may not be the most appropriate place. And so we've had a lot of discussion at the last meeting where AT&T representative presented it, but unfortunately we were not able to put it into our advance notice for that meeting because of a time restriction. We didn't learn of it until the last minute. And consequently, before the neighborhood makes a decision on it, we want more input from our citizens.
Oh, Ingra.
Yeah, in the South End neighborhood, we're also meeting on the 16th at the Methodist Church on South End Road. And we have several issues that are happening in our neighborhood that, we're having the mayor come and talk about the state of the city. But then we're also having, we've had...
He can't come. He's in our neighborhood.
Well,
He's going to be at our meeting that night.
Well, it's going to be at ours first.
You have to walk across the hall. Oh, my goodness.
No, the other end. But we also have some land use things that need to be discussed. And so I encourage all people in South End Neighborhood Association to come out and find out what's happening in our neighborhood.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, we made it. We're not on schedule, but you hung in there. Thank you so much. We're adjourned.
Thank you, Alice.